When billionaire tech CEO Claire Hawthorne fled her own wedding in a rain-drenched gown, the world assumed she'd lost her mind. But standing at the modest apartment door of Ethan Brooks, her widowed employee, single father, and the quiet man who'd haunted her thoughts for 3 years, she knew the truth. She'd finally found it. One knock would destroy her reputation, shatter corporate dynasties, and ignite the scandal of the decade. But some loves refuse to stay buried beneath boardroom politics and billion-dollar expectations. This is the story of a woman who chose truth over empire and discovered what power really means. If you believe courage starts with one impossible choice, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story of forbidden love and dangerous honesty travels. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday evening, transforming the Seattle streets into rivers of reflected neon and headlight glare. Claire Hawthorne stood beneath the awning of a modest apartment complex in Fremont, her Vera Wang wedding gown clinging to her body like a second skin, the train dragging through puddles she no longer cared about. Her hand trembled as she raised it to knock on apartment 4B. She'd left 700 guests waiting at the Four Seasons. Abandoned a reception that cost more than most people earned in 5 years. Walked away from Lawrence Ashford III, Harvard legacy, venture capital titan, the man her father had called the perfect merger of families and fortunes. But perfect was a lie she could no longer live. Her knuckles touched the door. One knock, then another. She heard movement inside, the shuffle of footsteps, a child's distant laughter cut short. Then silence. The kind of silence that comes when someone checks a peephole and sees the impossible standing on the other side. Claire? Ethan Brooks' voice came through the door, confused and careful. What are you doing here? Please, her voice cracked. Please let me in. The door opened slowly, revealing a man who looked nothing like the polished executives who populated her world. Ethan stood in worn jeans and a faded University of Washington t-shirt, his dark hair slightly disheveled, his hazel eyes wide with concern and something else, something that had lived unspoken between them for 3 years. Jesus, you're soaking wet. He pulled the door wider. Get inside before you catch... He stopped, really seeing her now. The wedding dress, the smeared mascara, the bouquet of orchids and roses she still clutched like a lifeline. Claire, what happened? She stepped into his small living room, water pooling around her ruined designer heels. The apartment was warm and lived in, nothing like her downtown penthouse with its sterile elegance. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. A half-completed puzzle spread across the coffee table. The faint scent of spaghetti sauce lingered in the air. I couldn't do it. The words tumbled out. I was standing there in the bridal suite, looking at myself in the mirror, and all I could think was that I was about to promise forever to a man I don't love. A man I've never loved, and I couldn't. Ethan closed the door carefully, his movements deliberate, as if any sudden gesture might shatter the surreal moment. You left your wedding. I left my wedding. Does anyone know where you are? No? Claire set the bouquet on his bookshelf next to a framed photo of Ethan and his daughter Maya at the zoo. I told the driver to let me out 6 blocks away, walked the rest. I don't think anyone followed me. Claire. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd watched him make 1,000 times during meetings, during presentations, during the late nights when they'd worked together on projects that changed the trajectory of her company. You can't just... Your fiance, your family, the press. This is going to be a nightmare. I know. She met his eyes. I know exactly what I've done, what it means, what it's going to cost. She took a step closer. But I had to see you, before everything explodes, before the world tells me all the reasons this is insane. I had to tell you the truth. What truth? But his voice had dropped to barely a whisper, and she could see he already knew. Had maybe always known, that I'm in love with you. The confession hung in the air between them, 3 years of careful professionalism and deliberate distance shattering with 6 words. That I have been since the first month you started working for me. That every decision I've made, every reason I've given myself to stay with Lawrence, every attempt to do the right thing and maintain boundaries and be the CEO everyone expects, It's all been a lie built on top of one simple truth. You're the only man I've ever wanted. Ethan's face went through a series of emotions too complex to name. Shock, fear, longing, something that looked dangerously close to hope. You don't mean that. You're upset. You're overwhelmed. Don't! Claire's voice sharpened. Don't tell me what I feel. I've spent 3 years watching you be kind to everyone in that office. 3 years noticing how you always remember people's birthdays, how you check on the junior developers when they're struggling, how you light up when you talk about Maya. I've memorized the way you push your glasses up when you're thinking, the way you laugh when something genuinely surprises you, the way you go quiet when you're working through a complex problem. She moved closer, and he didn't step back. I know you take Maya to violin lessons every Tuesday evening. I know you volunteer at the food bank on Saturdays. I know you've been rebuilding your life piece by piece since Sarah died, and that you carry her memory with such grace it breaks my heart every time I see it. Her voice softened. And I know that I felt something from you too. In the careful distance you keep, in the way you look at me sometimes when you think I'm not paying attention, in the absolute professionalism that feels less like protocol and more like protection. Claire, I work for you. Ethan's voice was strained. You're my boss. You're the CEO of a company worth billions. I'm a mid-level software architect raising a 6-year-old daughter in a 1-bedroom apartment. We can't. I know what the world sees. She was close enough now to touch him, but she didn't. Not yet. Trust fund princess and struggling widower. Boss and employee. Woman who has everything and man who's lost too much. But that's not what this is. You know it isn't. Then what is it? The question came out raw. It's the only honest thing in my entire life. The silence that followed was broken by a small voice from the hallway. Daddy? Who's here? Both of them froze. Ethan turned toward the sound, his entire demeanor shifting into protective father mode. Maya, honey, go back to bed. It's someone from work. A little girl appeared in the doorway, clutching a stuffed elephant, her dark curls wild from sleep. She wore pajamas covered in stars and moons. When she saw Claire, her eyes went wide. Wow, you look like a princess. Despite everything, the chaos, the fear, the impossibility of what she'd just done, Claire found herself smiling. Thank you, sweetheart. Why are you all wet? I was walking in the rain. Maya considered this with the serious logic of 6-year-old wisdom. That's not very smart. You could get sick. You're absolutely right. Claire knelt down, heedless of what the movement did to her dress. I should have brought an umbrella. I have an umbrella. It has ladybugs on it. Maya stepped closer, examining Claire with open curiosity. Are you a real princess? No, honey. I'm just someone who wore a fancy dress to see your dad. Oh. Maya seemed to accept this. Is it a special occasion? Ethan cleared his throat. Maya, go back to bed, please. I'll come check on you in a minute. But now, sweetheart. Something in his tone registered. Maya nodded, gave Claire one last curious look, and patted back down the hallway. They heard her bedroom door close softly. I should go. Claire stood, suddenly aware of how completely she'd disrupted his evening, his life, everything. I shouldn't have come here. I wasn't thinking clearly. Stop. Ethan's hand caught her wrist, gentle but firm. Don't run. Not now. Not after saying all of that. What do you want me to do? The question came out broken. Tell me what you want, Ethan, because I've been trying to figure it out for 3 years, and I still don't know. Every time I think I see something in the way you look at me, you pull back. Every time we work late, and the air between us feels like it's crackling with everything we're not saying, you find a reason to leave early. So tell me, am I crazy? Am I inventing something that doesn't exist because I'm so desperate to feel something real that I've projected it onto the kindest man in my orbit? You're not crazy. His grip on her wrist tightened slightly. You're not inventing anything. Then what? Sarah died 3 years ago. The words came out heavy with old grief. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Brain aneurysm. She was making breakfast. Maya was watching cartoons. I was in the shower. By the time I found her on the kitchen floor, she was already gone. Claire's free hand rose to her mouth. The first year was just survival, getting Maya through it, getting myself through it, learning how to be both parents when I barely knew how to be one. The second year was rebuilding. New job, new city, new life where people didn't look at me with pity. He met her eyes. And then I walked into Tech Core Solutions for my first day, and you were standing in the lobby arguing with the coffee machine, and I felt something I hadn't felt since Sarah died. Something I had no right to feel. Not for my boss. Not for someone so far out of my league, we might as well live on different planets. I'm not out of your league. Claire, you're a billionaire. I'm a woman who's been sleepwalking through a life designed by other people. You're a man who rebuilt himself from ashes and turned into someone good, someone genuine, someone who makes me want to be honest instead of strategic. She stepped closer. You want to talk about leagues? I've spent 3 years in rooms full of powerful people who would sell their integrity for market share without blinking. You're raising a daughter with kindness and patience. You treat the janitor with the same respect you show the board members. You build things that matter and you don't need credit for it. Her voice dropped. You're so far above my league, it's not even funny. That's not how the world sees it. The world also thinks marrying Lawrence Ashford is a good decision. The world is wrong about a lot of things. Ethan released her wrist but didn't step back. They stood inches apart, 3 years of careful distance finally collapsing. This can't work. You know that. Even if we both feel this, the optics alone would destroy you. Your board would revolt. The press would crucify you. And Maya, his voice caught. I can't put her through a scandal. She's already lost her mother. I won't let my choices damage her more. I know. Claire's voice was steady now, certain. I know all the reasons this is impossible. I've listed them to myself 1,000 times. That's why I stayed with Lawrence. That's why I said yes when he proposed. Because it was safe, expected, the kind of merger everyone understood. She paused. But standing in that bridal suite today, looking at a future where I'd spend 50 years pretending to be content with a man I don't love, I realized something. I'm 34 years old, and I've never once done something just because it was what I truly wanted. Every choice has been calculated, strategic, designed to build the company, satisfy the board, make my father proud, prove I earned my position instead of inheriting it. You did earn it. Maybe, but I've never tested whether I could keep it if I stopped playing by everyone else's rules. She reached out, let her fingers brush his jaw. He didn't pull away. I don't have a plan, Ethan. I don't have a strategy. All I know is that I stood in front of that mirror today and saw a stranger. And then I thought about you, about the way you look when you're explaining code to Maya, or the quiet concentration on your face when you're solving a problem, or the smile you try to hide when someone tells a bad joke, and suddenly I could breathe again. Claire, I'm not asking you for anything. Her thumb traced his cheekbone. I'm not asking you to fix this or save me or make this make sense. I just needed you to know. Before the world goes insane, before lawyers and PR teams and damage control turns tonight into something it wasn't. I needed you to know that when I walked away from that wedding, I wasn't running from something. I was running toward you. The space between them had become almost non-existent. She could feel the warmth of him, smell the faint scent of fabric softener, and something distinctly him. His hand came up, cupping her face with such gentleness it made her chest ache. I've wanted to kiss you, he whispered, since the day you defended Marcus in that board meeting. When you stood up to those investors and told them that laying off the QA team would be morally bankrupt and strategically idiotic. You were magnificent. And I sat there thinking that I'd never seen anyone use their power to protect people instead of control them, and that I was in so much trouble. Then kiss me. It wasn't a demand, it was permission. If I do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back, you know that. I know. Your life will never be the same. Good. I don't want it to be the same, I want it to be real. He kissed her. Soft at first, almost hesitant, as if 3 years of wanting had made him forget how. But then Claire's hand slid into his hair, and his arms came around her waist, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. What have we done? The most terrifying thing possible. Claire's smile was shaky but genuine. We told the truth. Her phone buzzed in the small purse she'd somehow managed to keep clutched during her escape, then buzzed again and again. The world was catching up. She pulled it out, saw 17 missed calls from her father, 12 from Lawrence, 23 from her assistant, and a series of increasingly frantic texts from her mother. Where are you? Everyone is looking for you. Lawrence is beside himself. This is unacceptable, Claire. Call me immediately. And then, from her father, whatever you're doing, stop. Come home. We'll fix this. They'll fix it. Claire's voice was hollow. They'll spin it. Mental breakdown, cold feet, overwhelmed by pressure. They'll have me back at Lawrence's side by morning with some carefully crafted statement about love-conquering doubts. Will you go? Ethan's voice was carefully neutral, giving her space to choose. No. The word came out strong, clear. I won't go back. I won't fix it. I won't let them turn tonight into something it wasn't. Then what will you do? I don't know. She looked at him, really looked at him, taking in the concern and fear and impossible hope written across his face. But I know I won't lie anymore. Not about this. Not about what I feel. Claire, they'll destroy you. Your father, Lawrence, the board, they have power, resources. They'll make this as painful as possible. Let them try. There was steel in her voice now, the same steel that had built a company from her father's legacy into something tripled in value. I didn't get where I am by backing down from difficult fights. This is different. This is personal. Exactly. She kissed him again, quick and fierce. This is the first fight that's ever really been mine. Her phone rang. Her father. She declined the call. You should answer, Ethan said. Avoiding them will only make it worse. I know, but I need one more minute. One more minute where it's just us and the truth and nothing else. They stood there in his small living room, her in her ruined wedding dress, him in his worn t-shirt and jeans, while outside the rain continued to fall, and somewhere across the city, 700 guests were learning that Claire Hawthorne had vanished from her own wedding. What happens now? Ethan asked quietly. Now I face it. All of it. The consequences. The fallout. The scandal. She straightened her spine, feeling something shift inside her. The CEO mask sliding back into place, but different now. Backed by truth instead of performance. But I need to know something first. What? Are you with me? Because I can't control what happens next. I can't promise this won't touch you and Maya. I can't guarantee the board won't force me out or that the press won't make our lives hell. All I can promise is that I meant every word I said tonight, that I'm done pretending, that I'm going to fight for this, for us, with everything I have. She paused. But I need to know if you want me to, if you're willing to take this risk, because if you're not, if you need to protect Maya, if this is too much, if you need me to walk away, I will. I'll find a way to keep you out of it. Claire. He stopped her spiraling with a hand on her cheek. I lost Sarah. I know what it's like to have someone ripped away without warning, without choice, to spend the rest of your life wondering what if, and never getting an answer. His voice was thick with emotion. I'm terrified. I'm terrified for Maya, for you, for what this could mean. But I'm not going to let fear make me choose wrong again. I'm not going to be the reason you look back in 20 years and wonder what might have happened if someone had been brave enough to meet you halfway. You mean, I mean I'm with you, whatever comes, however bad it gets. I'm with you. The kiss that followed was different from the first, not tentative or exploratory, but claiming, a promise made in the space between heartbeats. When her phone rang again, Claire answered. Where the hell are you? Her father's voice was cold fury barely contained. I'm safe, Dad. That's all you need to know right now. Safe? You humiliated this family, embarrassed Lawrence, made us all look like fools. Get back here immediately. No. The silence on the other end was shocked. Claire rarely defied her father directly. What did you say? I said no. I'm not coming back. I'm not marrying Lawrence. And before you start planning how to fix this or spin this or manage this, you need to know something. I didn't leave because I was scared or confused. I left because I don't love him. I've never loved him, and I'm done pretending I do just because it makes good business sense. This isn't about love, Claire. This is about legacy, partnership. The merger of two families who have built. I don't care about the merger. Her voice cut through his. I don't care that Lawrence's family has connections we need or that his venture capital firm could help our expansion. I care that I almost promised forever to someone I couldn't even like, let alone love, because everyone told me it was the smart play. You're being irrational. Maybe. Or maybe I'm being honest for the first time in my life. You'll regret this. When the board demands answers, when the press tears you apart, when you realize what you've thrown away, then I'll regret it. But at least it will be my choice, my consequence, my life. She glanced at Ethan, drew strength from his steady presence. I spent 3 years building what you started into something bigger, better. I tripled our market value, landed contracts you said were impossible, proved I earned my position, and the whole time I let you and Mom and the board tell me who to marry, how to present myself, which version of Claire Hawthorne the world needed to see. Her voice softened. I'm done, Dad. I'm done being the perfect daughter, the perfect CEO, the perfect merger candidate. I'm just going to be me. And if that's not enough, then you and the board can find someone else to play the part. If you don't fix this, if you don't come back and make this right, there will be consequences. I know, I'm counting on it, because maybe consequences are what I need to finally figure out who I actually am when I stop trying to be who everyone else needs. She ended the call. Her hands were shaking. Ethan took them in his, warm and solid and real. That was terrifying, she admitted. That was brave. Same thing, I think. A sound from the hallway made them both turn. Maya stood there again, elephant clutched tighter now, her small face worried. Daddy? Why is the princess crying? Claire touched her face, surprised to find tears there. Ethan moved to his daughter, kneeling to her level. She's okay, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're scared and brave at the same time. Is she staying? The question hung in the air, simple and impossible. Not tonight, baby, but maybe... He looked at Claire. Maybe she'll visit again soon. Okay. Maya seemed to accept this. You should give her dry clothes. Sarah always said nobody thinks clearly when they're cold and wet. The casual mention of his late wife, so natural for Maya, so clearly part of their daily life, made something squeeze in Claire's chest. This wasn't just about her and Ethan. This was about a little girl who'd already lost one important woman, who might lose more if this went badly. Your daughter is very wise, Claire said softly. She gets it from her mom. Ethan's voice was gentle with old grief and present love. I should go, Claire said. Find a hotel, figure out my next move. I've disrupted your evening enough. Where will you go? I don't know, somewhere the press won't think to look. I need time to think before I face the board, the public, all of it. You could stay here. The offer came quiet, almost hesitant. Ethan, the couch pulls out. You're exhausted. It's late. And the last thing you need is some paparazzi catching you checking into a hotel in a wedding dress. He managed a small smile. Besides, Maya's right. You should get dry. This is already complicated enough without me staying over. It's already as complicated as it gets. What's one more complication? She looked around his small apartment, so different from her penthouse with its floor-to-ceiling windows and designer everything. This place was lived in, loved in, full of mismatched furniture and daughter-made art and the kind of warmth that money couldn't buy. Okay, she said finally. Just for tonight. Then I'll figure out the rest. Ethan found her clothes, a pair of sweats and a t-shirt that had clearly belonged to Sarah, soft from years of washing. Claire changed in the bathroom, carefully hanging the wedding dress over the shower rod where it dripped steadily into the tub. When she emerged, Ethan had made tea and set out the pull-out couch with blankets that smelled like fabric softener and home. Thank you, she said, for this, for listening, for not telling me I'm insane. You might be insane. He handed her a mug. But if you are, at least you're honest about it. They sat on the couch, careful distance between them now. both aware of Maya sleeping down the hall and the enormity of what they'd started. Tomorrow's going to be hell, Claire said. Probably. The board will be furious. Lawrence will want blood. My father might actually disown me. Yeah. And you and I, we work together. Or work together. This breaks every HR policy ever written. Definitely. So why don't I regret it? She looked at him over her tea. Why does this feel like the first right thing I've done in years? Because maybe it is. Ethan set down his mug, turned to face her fully. Claire, I need to be clear about something. I'm not going to be your escape, your rebellion, the proof that you can make choices your father doesn't approve of. If we do this, if we try this, it has to be because you actually want me, not what I represent, not some fantasy of a simpler life. Me, spreadsheets and dad jokes and a 6-year-old who will wake you up at dawn on weekends. This life, this reality. I know what I'm choosing. Do you? Because right now you're running from something. And that's okay. Sometimes running is exactly what we need to do. But eventually you have to run towards something. And I need to know what that something is before I let myself believe this could actually work. Claire set down her own mug, took his hands. I'm running toward the first person who ever made me want to stop performing. The first man who treated me like a person instead of a prize or a problem to solve. The first time I felt like myself, actually myself, not CEO Claire or daughter Claire or any of the other versions, was every time I walked past your desk and you looked up and smiled like seeing me was the good part of your day. She squeezed his fingers. I don't want escape, Ethan. I want truth. I want someone who'll call me on my bullshit. I want Sunday mornings and terrible coffee and someone who actually cares more about what kind of person I am than what I can do for them. Her voice dropped. I want you. However that looks, whatever that costs. It's going to cost everything. Then I'll pay it, because everything I have right now feels like nothing compared to this. They sat in silence for a long moment, the enormity of it settling over them. What do we do now? Ethan finally asked. Now I sleep. Tomorrow I face the board. I tell them the truth. I let them decide if honesty is a quality they want in their CEO or a liability they need to eliminate. She leaned her head on his shoulder, felt him stiffen briefly before relaxing into the contact. And then, whatever happens, I stop living my life according to other people's expectations. I figure out what Claire Hawthorne actually wants when nobody's telling her what she should want. And if what you want is this, us, then I fight for it. With everything I have, every skill I've developed, every hard decision I've learned to make, every ounce of stubborn determination that built $1 billion company. She tilted her head to look at him. Fair warning, I'm very good at getting what I want when I actually commit to wanting it. That's what terrifies me. But he was smiling. The idea that you might actually pull this off. You should be terrified. I'm about to upend your entire life. Maybe my life needed upending. Claire stood, suddenly exhausted in a way that went bone deep. I should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Yeah. Ethan stood too. Claire? Yeah? Thank you for being brave enough to knock on my door, for trusting me with this, for... He stopped, searching for words. For making me feel like maybe Sarah wasn't the only woman I'd ever love. I didn't think I'd feel that again. Tears pricked her eyes. Thank you for answering the door. He kissed her forehead, gentle and chaste, then disappeared into his bedroom. Claire lay down on the pull-out couch, surrounded by the sounds of Ethan's life. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic, the creak of old apartment buildings settling. She'd walked away from everything tonight, a wedding, a merger, a future that had been planned since she was old enough to understand what legacy meant. And lying there in borrowed clothes on a pull-out couch in a modest apartment, Claire Hawthorne felt free for the first time in her entire life. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from Lawrence. We need to talk. Tomorrow. My office. 9 a.m. Don't make this worse than it already is. She turned off the phone and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd face the consequences. Tonight she'd chosen truth. And somehow, impossibly, that was enough. Claire woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the sound of a child singing off-key in another room. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't place where she was, then memory crashed back. The wedding, the rain, Ethan's door. She sat up, still wearing Sarah's old clothes, and checked her phone. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages. Her email inbox had exploded overnight with subject lines ranging from urgent, board emergency meeting, to statement required immediately, to a single message from her mother that read only, "How could you?" The singing grew louder. Maya's voice carried down the hallway, accompanied by the clatter of dishes. Claire stood folding the blankets carefully, trying to erase evidence of her intrusion into their morning routine. When she emerged into the kitchen, she found Ethan at the stove making pancakes while Maya sat at the small table coloring aggressively in a princess coloring book. "The princess shouldn't marry the prince," Maya announced to no one in particular. "She should marry whoever makes her happy, even if it's the baker or the dragon." Ethan caught Claire's eye over his daughter's head, a smile tugging at his mouth. "Good morning. Coffee?" "Please." Claire slid into the chair across from Maya. "I like your philosophy on princesses." Maya looked up, seeming unsurprised to find Claire still there. "My teacher says we can be anything we want, so princesses can too. They don't have to follow rules just because they're in a fancy dress." "Your teacher sounds smart." "She is. She has a tattoo of a butterfly, and sometimes she wears sparkly shoes." Maya returned to her coloring. "Are you still sad?" "A little, but less than yesterday." "Daddy says being sad is okay. It means something mattered." She selected a purple crayon. "Did something matter?" Claire glanced at Ethan, who was very deliberately focused on pancakes. "Yes, something mattered very much." "Then purple is the right color. Purple is for important feelings." The simple wisdom of it made Claire's chest ache. Here was a 6-year-old who'd lost her mother navigating emotions with more grace than most of the executives Claire knew. Ethan set down plates, pancakes shaped like flowers for Maya, regular rounds for Claire. "Eat. You'll need your strength." "For what?" "For whatever comes next." They ate in companionable silence, broken only by Maya's running commentary about her coloring choices and a story about her friend Zoe, who had brought a frog to school in her lunchbox. It was so normal, so domestic, so utterly different from Claire's usual mornings of protein smoothies consumed while reviewing market reports. At 8:15, Ethan walked Maya to the bus stop while Claire cleaned the dishes, an offering, a way to be useful in this space that wasn't hers. When he returned, his expression had shifted into something more serious. "I called in sick to work," he said. "Figured showing up today would be complicated." "Ethan, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did. Because in about..." He checked his watch. 45 minutes. You're supposed to meet Lawrence, and I'm guessing the press has already connected enough dots to make things interesting." As if on cue, Claire's phone rang. Her assistant, Jennifer. "I have to answer this." "I know." She picked up. "Jennifer." "Oh, thank God." Jennifer's voice was frantic. "Where are you? Are you safe? The office is losing its mind. Your father's called 3 times. Lawrence showed up at the building at 7 demanding to know your location. And Claire," she dropped her voice, "there are reporters outside. Someone leaked that you left the wedding and they're camped out waiting for a statement." "How bad is it?" "Viral. #runaway bride is trending. People are posting footage from the venue, guests looking confused, Lawrence's family leaving, your father's face when he realized you were actually gone." Jennifer paused. "Where are you?" Claire looked at Ethan, made a decision. "Somewhere safe. I need you to do something for me. Anything. Clear my schedule for today. Cancel the meeting with Lawrence, tell him I'll speak with him when I'm ready, not before. And schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Claire, your father already called one for this afternoon, 4 p.m. He said it's mandatory." Of course he had. Robert Hawthorne didn't wait for his daughter to dictate timing when his legacy was at stake. "Fine. 4 p.m. I'll be there." She steadied her voice. "And Jennifer, thank you for not judging, for just helping. You've always been good to me. Whatever's happening, I trust you have your reasons." Jennifer's voice softened. "For what it's worth, I never liked Lawrence anyway. He talked to the support staff like we were furniture." After she hung up, Claire found Ethan watching her with quiet concern. Board meeting at 4, she said. Which gives me exactly, she checked the time, 7 hours to figure out what I'm going to say. What do you want to say? The truth. That I don't love Lawrence, that I won't marry someone for corporate strategy, that I'm done letting other people's expectations dictate my choices. She met his eyes. But I can't tell them about you. Not yet. It'll look like an affair. Like you're the reason I left, which would destroy your career and make Maya's life hell. So you're going to protect me by lying? I'm going to protect you by being strategic about timing. There's a difference. She moved closer. Ethan, if I walk into that boardroom and announce I'm involved with an employee, they'll use it against both of us. They'll claim you manipulated me, seduced the boss. They'll paint you as opportunistic and me as compromised. Your reputation will be shredded, and Maya will have to watch her father get dragged through the press. And if you don't tell them, then I control the narrative. I make this about me choosing authenticity over convenience, about refusing to live a lie. Once the dust settles, once I've proven I can still run the company without a strategic marriage, then we can go public. On our terms. When we're ready. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. You've thought this through. I've thought about nothing else since 3 a.m. She took his hand. I know it means hiding, lying by omission, all the things I said I was done with. But this lie protects you and Maya, and right now that matters more than my principles about transparency. I don't want to be your dirty secret. You're not. You're the person I'm choosing to protect while I burn down everything else. She squeezed his fingers. Give me time. Let me handle the board, stabilize the situation, prove I'm still competent, even after making the most impulsive decision of my life. Then we'll figure out how to do this publicly without it destroying us both. He studied her face, searching for something. You're sure about this? About facing them alone? I've been facing them alone my whole life. At least now I'll be doing it honestly. That's what worries me. Honesty is dangerous when you're dealing with people who trade in manipulation. Claire's phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Lawrence. You embarrassed me, humiliated my family, made me look like a fool in front of everyone who matters. Whatever game you're playing, it ends now. 9 a.m., my office. Or I make sure the board knows exactly how unstable you've become. She showed the text to Ethan. He's threatening you. He's scared. Men like Lawrence don't handle rejection well, especially not public rejection. She typed back. I'll be there. But this isn't a negotiation. You shouldn't go alone, Ethan said. He's angry. Wounded pride makes people dangerous. I can handle Lawrence. I know you can. That's not the point. He moved to the window, looking out at the street below. The point is, you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to manage his ego while dealing with everything else. Welcome to being a woman in power. Managing male egos is half the job description. The bitterness in her voice made him turn. That's not okay. No, but it's reality. She joined him at the window. Lawrence will bluster and threaten and try to make me feel guilty for embarrassing him. He'll frame this as me being irrational, emotional, incapable of clear judgment. He'll probably offer to take me back if I apologize publicly, frame it as cold feet overcome by his magnanimous forgiveness. And you'll refuse, clearly, finally. I'll tell him the truth he's been avoiding. I don't love him, never did. And I'm not going to spend my life pretending otherwise just to make him feel better about himself. Ethan's hand found hers. He won't take it well. Good. Maybe learning that he can't buy or manipulate his way through everything will be character building. Despite the tension, Ethan smiled. You're terrifying when you're decisive. You say that like it's a bad thing. It's not. It's... He stopped, seeming to reconsider his words. It's exactly what I'd expect from a woman who walked away from a billion-dollar wedding because she'd rather face consequences than live a lie. At 8:50, Claire changed back into her wedding dress, the only clothes she had. The irony wasn't lost on her. Walking into Lawrence's office wearing the dress she was supposed to marry him in felt like a particular kind of poetry. I could come with you, Ethan offered again as she prepared to leave. No, this is something I need to do alone. She kissed him, quick and fierce. But thank you, for last night, for this morning, for making me feel like choosing truth wasn't insane. It might still be insane. Then at least it's my insanity. She took a car service to Lawrence's downtown office, a gleaming tower of steel and glass that housed Ashford Capital and spoke of old money trying to look modern. Security recognized her immediately, their professional masks slipping into poorly concealed shock at her appearance. "Mr. Ashford is expecting you," the receptionist said carefully, not mentioning the wedding dress. 42nd floor. The elevator ride felt endless. Claire watched herself in the mirrored walls, a woman in a ruined Vera Wang gown, hair barely tamed, makeup from yesterday smudged and faded. She looked nothing like the polished CEO who'd stood in boardrooms and commanded respect. She looked real. Lawrence's office occupied a corner suite with views of Elliott Bay. He stood at the windows when she entered, his back rigid with barely contained fury. "Close the door," he said without turning. She did. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" He spun to face her, his handsome features twisted with anger. "Any concept of the chaos you've created?" "I left our wedding. Yes, I'm aware. You left our wedding, you disappeared for 12 hours, you ignored every attempt at contact, and you showed up here wearing—" He gestured at her dress. "That. Like some kind of statement." "It's not a statement. It's the only outfit I had available." "Where were you?" The question came sharp, demanding. "That's none of your business." "None of my—" Lawrence's laugh was harsh. "I'm your fiancé, or was supposed to be. I think I'm entitled to know where you spent the night after abandoning our wedding." "You're not entitled to anything. Not anymore." Claire moved further into the office, maintaining distance. "And you were never my fiancé in any real sense. You were a strategic alliance my father arranged, a merger of families and fortunes that looked good on paper." "That's not fair. We had plans, a future." "You had plans. I had obligations I convinced myself were the same thing." She met his eyes. "But I don't love you, Lawrence. I've never loved you. And I'm not going to marry you just because it makes sense for our family's business interests." His face went through several expressions: shock, anger, wounded pride settling into something colder, more calculating. "Is there someone else?" The question hung between them, loaded and dangerous. "This isn't about someone else. It's about me refusing to live a lie." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." Claire kept her voice level. "What happened yesterday? What I did? It wasn't about you. Not really. It was about me finally being honest about what I want from my life." "And what you want doesn't include me." "No, it doesn't. I'm sorry if that hurts your pride, but it's the truth." Lawrence moved to his desk, poured himself scotch despite the early hour. "Your father called me 3 times. Very concerned about your mental state. Suggested that perhaps you'd been under too much stress, that maybe we should consider a postponement rather than a cancellation." "I'm not postponing. I'm done." "He seems to think you might be persuaded otherwise. Given time, given the right incentives." "What kind of incentives?" "A seat on the Ashford Capital board, increased stake in the merger between our companies, more autonomy in how you run TechCore." He sipped his scotch. "Your father's willing to make significant concessions if you'll just reconsider." "I'm not interested in concessions." "Claire, be reasonable. You walked out on the wedding of the year, made both our families look foolish. But we can fix this." Joint statement. Postponement due to stress. You take some time off, we regroup, and in 6 months we do this properly. "No. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years." Lawrence set down his glass with deliberate care. "Then let me be clear. If you don't fix this, if you insist on this ridiculous path, there will be consequences. My family has significant influence with TechCore's board. My firm holds substantial investments in your company. We have the power to make things very difficult for you." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining reality. Your position as CEO is less secure than you think. Your father's getting older. The board's been questioning some of your recent decisions. They'd be very interested to know that their leader is making erratic choices, acting impulsively, perhaps not stable enough to guide a billion-dollar company." The threat was clear, unmistakable. Claire felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. "So that's your play. Frame me as mentally unstable, manipulate the board into questioning my competence, all because I won't marry you." All because you're throwing away something valuable over, what, a moment of panic? Cold feet? His voice took on a patronizing edge. Everyone gets nervous before a wedding, Claire. That's normal. But running away? Disappearing? That suggests deeper issues. The only issue is that I don't want to marry you. Want is irrelevant. This is business. My life is not business. Everything is business when you're at our level. Lawrence came around the desk, moving closer. You were raised for this, Claire, to understand that personal desires are secondary to legacy, to family, to maintaining the structures that keep power where it belongs. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. It's reality, and the sooner you accept it, the easier this will be. Claire looked at the man she'd almost married, really looked at him, saw the entitlement written in every line of his expensive suit, the absolute certainty that he deserved her compliance, the inability to conceive of a world where she might choose something other than what he offered. I feel sorry for you, she said quietly. You genuinely can't understand why I'd walk away, why I'd choose uncertainty over a comfortable lie. You're so trapped in this world of transactions and leverage that you've forgotten people are supposed to actually feel things. Feelings are a luxury for people who can afford them. No. Feelings are what make us human. Everything else is just negotiation. Lawrence's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. The board meeting this afternoon, I'll be there, and I'll be explaining to them exactly why you're not fit to continue as CEO. Your father might protect you, but the other board members, they care about stability, competence. They won't tolerate leadership that acts on impulse. Then I guess we'll see what they decide. Last chance, Claire, come back. Apologize. We'll fix this together. No. She turned toward the door. There's someone else, Lawrence said behind her. I can see it in how you're standing, how you're talking. You didn't just run from the wedding, you ran to someone. Claire's hand stilled on the doorknob. Who is he? Some nobody who made you feel special? Made you think you could have some fantasy life away from responsibility? His voice dripped contempt. Let me guess, younger, poor, someone completely inappropriate who makes you feel like you're rebelling against Daddy? She turned back slowly. You don't know anything about me, about what I want, what I need. I know you're about to destroy everything you've built for someone who'll never understand your world, never fit into it, who'll drag you down instead of elevating you. Or maybe he'll remind me what it feels like to be seen as a person instead of an asset. The confirmation that there was someone made Lawrence's face contort with rage. Who is it? Do I know him? Is he someone from the company? Goodbye, Lawrence. I'll find out. And when I do, I'll destroy him. Whatever pathetic life he has, I'll take it apart piece by piece until he wishes he'd never looked at you. Claire felt ice run through her veins. Stay away from him. So it is someone specific, interesting. Lawrence smiled without warmth. Maybe I'll start with your employee roster. Cross-reference anyone you've spent unusual amounts of time with. Check for any irregularities in your schedule. I have resources, Claire. I will find out who he is. You do that, and I'll make sure every reporter in this city knows exactly what kind of man you are. How you threaten people. How you tried to leverage board positions to force me into marriage. How you're using your firm's investments as a weapon. Who'll believe you? Scorned bride making accusations against the man she humiliated? Everyone. Because unlike you, I have a reputation for honesty. And because I'll have proof. She pulled out her phone, stopped the recording she'd started the moment she walked into his office. Every threat, every manipulation, every word about using your influence to damage my career, all recorded. Lawrence's face went white. You can't. I can. And I will if you come anywhere near the man I care about. You want to fight me in the boardroom? Fine. That's fair game. But you threaten him. You threaten his family. You make any attempt to use your resources to hurt him. Her voice went cold. And I will burn your reputation to the ground so thoroughly that no amount of family money will rehabilitate it. You're bluffing. Try me. See what happens when you back a woman with nothing left to lose into a corner. She left before he could respond, taking the elevator down 42 floors, with her heart pounding and her hands shaking. Only when she reached the street did she let herself breathe. Her phone buzzed. Ethan. How did it go? She typed back. He threatened to find out who I was with and destroy them. I told him I'd destroy him first. Claire, I recorded everything. Insurance. He won't touch you. That's not what I'm worried about. What are you worried about? You, fighting this alone. The words made her eyes sting. She stood on a Seattle street corner in a ruined wedding dress, corporate warriors circling, her entire life balanced on the edge of collapse. And someone was worried about her. I'm okay. Heading to the office to prepare for the board meeting. I'll call you after. Be careful. Always. She wasn't, though. Careful had never been her strong suit when she actually cared about something. The TechCore building looked the same as always, glass and steel, and the logo she'd redesigned 3 years ago. But walking through the lobby felt different. People stared, whispered. Her wedding dress drew eyes like a beacon. Jennifer met her at the executive elevator, professional mask firmly in place. Conference room C is ready. I brought your emergency office clothes. And coffee. You'll need coffee. You're a miracle. I'm loyal to good bosses. There's a difference. In the conference room, Claire changed into the black suit she kept for unexpected meetings, then spent 2 hours reviewing financials, recent decisions, everything the board might use against her. At 3:30, her father arrived. Robert Hawthorne looked every inch the titan who'd built TechCore from nothing. Silver hair perfectly styled, suit custom tailored, expression carved from granite. We need to talk, he said, before the meeting. I don't think we do. Claire, please, 5 minutes. She'd never been able to refuse him completely. They moved to her private office, the city sprawling below them through floor-to-ceiling windows. You're my daughter, he started. I love you. You know that. But you're also the CEO of my company. And what you did yesterday, it wasn't just personal. It was professional suicide. I disagree. The board is furious. Lawrence's family is calling for your removal. Our investors are panicking about leadership stability. He moved closer. I've spent the last 18 hours trying to protect you, trying to convince people this was temporary insanity brought on by stress. But you're not making it easy. I don't want to make it easy. I want to tell the truth. The truth? The truth is you abandoned a wedding in front of 700 people, made us all look like fools, destroyed a strategic alliance that took years to build. His voice rose. What truth could possibly justify that? The truth that I don't love him, that I've been lying to myself and everyone else because I thought that's what being a good CEO required, that I'd rather face consequences than spend 50 years pretending to be happy. Robert's expression softened slightly. You think I don't understand? You think your mother and I married for love? This was an arrangement. 2 families, beneficial merger. We made it work because that's what adults do. I don't want to make it work. I want to actually live. Living is a luxury we don't have. We have responsibilities, legacies, people depending on us. Then maybe I'm not the right person to carry that legacy. The words hung between them, radical and terrifying. Don't say that, Robert said quietly. Don't even think it. You're exactly the right person. You tripled our value, landed contracts I couldn't have imagined. You earned this position. Then trust me to know what I need. I do trust you, with business. But this, he gestured vaguely, this is different. This is emotion overriding judgment, and I can't let you destroy yourself because you're having a moment of crisis. It's not a moment, it's a reckoning. Her father studied her for a long moment. There's someone else, isn't there? Claire's silence was answer enough. Who? It doesn't matter. It matters if he's the reason my daughter threw away her future. He's not the reason. He's the reminder that I deserve better than a marriage of convenience. She met her father's eyes. Do you love Mom? Actually love her? Or is it just comfortable? That's not fair. It's a simple question. Robert moved to the window, looking out at the city he'd conquered. Your mother and I have built something. Partnership, respect, shared goals. Love grows from that, in time. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He turned back. And it's been enough. It's sustained us for 38 years, given us you, built this empire. That's more than most people get from chasing fairy tales. I don't want a fairy tale. I want to actually feel something. Feeling passes, legacy endures. Then let my legacy be honesty instead of empire. The board meeting started at 4 sharp, 12 faces around a mahogany table, each representing billions in investments and decades of influence. Claire took her seat at the head, spine straight, expression calm. Her father sat to her right. Lawrence's father, Richard Ashford, sat directly across, a clear power play. "Let's begin," Robert said. "We're here to discuss yesterday's events and their impact on company leadership." Richard Ashford didn't wait for pleasantries. "My family and yours had an agreement, a merger that would have benefited both companies substantially. Your daughter destroyed that agreement in the most public, humiliating way possible." "I ended a personal engagement," Claire said evenly, "not a business contract. Personal and professional are inseparable at our level. You know that." Richard's voice was sharp. "Your erratic behavior raises serious questions about your judgment, your stability, your fitness to lead." "Erratic behavior? I made a choice not to marry someone I don't love. That's called integrity, not instability." "You made a spectacle, embarrassed both families, created a PR nightmare." Richard leaned forward. "And now we hear there may be someone else involved. Someone inappropriate." Claire felt the room's attention sharpen. "My personal life is not board business." "It is when it affects company reputation," another board member, Patricia Chen, interjected. "If there's been inappropriate conduct with an employee, that absolutely affects your position." "There has been no inappropriate conduct." "Then who is he?" Richard pressed. "This mystery man worth destroying a strategic alliance for." "That's not relevant to this meeting." "Everything about your judgment is relevant." Richard pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. "My investigators are already looking into your recent activities. Cross-referencing schedules, checking security logs, interviewing sources. We'll know soon enough." Claire felt ice in her veins. She'd protected Ethan for now, but how long before someone connected dots? Before security footage showed her leaving in her wedding dress, arriving at an apartment building in Fremont? "This is a board meeting, not an interrogation," her father interjected. "We're here to discuss leadership, not pry into Claire's private affairs." "Her private affairs became public the moment she fled her own wedding," Patricia said. "Robert, I understand she's your daughter, but we have a responsibility to shareholders, to company stability. If she's compromised..." "I'm not compromised. I made a difficult personal choice that has nothing to do with my ability to run this company." "Doesn't it?" Richard smiled coldly. "Because from where I'm sitting, you've demonstrated incredibly poor judgment, impulsive decision-making, inability to honor commitments, all qualities we can't afford in leadership." The meeting devolved from there, accusations and defenses, thinly veiled threats, and careful maneuvering. Claire defended herself with every skill she'd developed, but she could feel the room turning. Not all of them, but enough. Her father fought for her. Jennifer Chen, who'd always respected Claire's work, argued for separating personal choices from professional competence. But the Ashford faction was strong, and they wanted blood. At 6, they called for a vote of confidence. All those who believe Claire Hawthorne should remain CEO, pending no further evidence of impropriety or instability, indicate now. 7 hands row, including her father's. Those opposed? 5 hands, including every board member connected to Ashford Capital. Motion carries. Ms. Hawthorne retains her position. Robert's voice was firm. Meeting adjourned. But Claire knew what the numbers meant. 7-5, the barest majority. One shift in allegiance and she'd be out. Richard Ashford paused at the door. "This isn't over. My son may have been willing to forgive your betrayal. I'm not. We will find out who you're protecting, and when we do, we'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of leader you really are." After they'd all left, Claire sat alone in the conference room, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan, are you okay?" She typed back with shaking hands. "I survived, barely. They're investigating, looking for you. Let them look. I'm not hiding. You don't understand what they'll do." "I understand perfectly. But I'm not going to let you fight this alone." "Ethan, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't argue." She wanted to argue, wanted to protect him, keep him separate from the carnage. But God, she was tired of being alone, and the thought of seeing him, of having someone on her side who cared more about her than corporate strategy, was too tempting to refuse. "Okay, 20 minutes later, Ethan Brooks walked into her executive office like he belonged there. No hesitation, no fear. Just steady presence and determined eyes. "You came," Claire said unnecessarily. "Of course I came." He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. "You face them alone. The least I can do is be here when you're falling apart." "I'm not falling apart." "You're shaking." She was. Now that she'd stopped performing, stopped defending, stopped fighting, her body was catching up to the trauma of the last 24 hours. "They're looking for you," she whispered against his chest. "Richard Ashford has investigators. They'll find security footage. They'll put together that I went to your apartment. They'll destroy you." "Let them try." "You don't mean that." "I absolutely mean that." He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "Claire, I told you last night, I'm with you. That doesn't mean I'm only with you when it's convenient or safe. That means I'm with you when it's terrifying and impossible and likely to end badly. This could cost you everything." "You already did cost me everything, the moment I fell in love with you." His hand cupped her face. "There's no going back from this. No safe version where we protect ourselves and still get to be together, so we might as well be brave about it." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Claire's phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Sources say runaway bride Claire Hawthorne may have been involved with TechCore employee. Investigation ongoing. It had started, the unraveling they'd both feared. "It's happening," she said. "Faster than I thought." Ethan read over her shoulder. "Then we get ahead of it. Tell the truth on our terms before they twist it into something ugly. If we go public now, they'll crucify you. Frame you as manipulative. Say you seduced your boss. And if we hide, they'll say the same thing, but we'll look guilty." "Nah." He took her hands. "Claire, there's no good option here, but there's an honest one. We tell the truth. We own it. We face whatever comes together." She looked at this man, this good, steady, impossible man who'd somehow become the most important person in her carefully constructed world. "Okay," she said. "Okay. We tell the truth. Now?" "Now." They drafted a statement together. Short, direct, true. "I left my wedding because I don't love Lawrence Ashford and never have. I have feelings for someone else, Ethan Brooks, a TechCore employee. Our relationship began after my engagement and was never inappropriate. I take full responsibility for my choices and their consequences. I will not apologize for choosing honesty." "Are you ready?" Ethan asked, his finger hovering over the send button. Claire took a breath, thought about everything she was about to unleash, the scandal, the judgment, the board's fury, the press feeding frenzy. Then she thought about spending the next 50 years pretending to be someone she wasn't. "Send it." He did. And together, they watched the world explode. The statement went live at 6:47 p.m. on a Friday evening. By 7, Claire's phone had received over 300 notifications. By 7:30, the story had been picked up by every major news outlet in Seattle. By 8, it was national. Claire stood at her office window watching the city lights flicker to life while her world caught fire online. Ethan sat at her desk, monitoring the media response on his laptop, his expression growing grimmer with each refresh. "They're calling you reckless," he said quietly, "saying you threw away a fortune for a fling, that you've lost perspective." "What are they saying about you?" His silence was answer enough. "Ethan, tell me that I'm a gold digger, an opportunist, that I saw a vulnerable woman and manipulated her for my own gain." He looked up, pain etched across his features. "One article is questioning my fitness as a father, suggesting that someone who'd pursue his boss might not have appropriate boundaries with his daughter." Claire's hands clenched into fists. "That's disgusting. That's reality. We knew this would happen. Knowing it and watching it are different things." She moved away from the window, began pacing. "They're going after Maya, a 6-year-old child, because her father fell in love with the wrong person. She doesn't read the news, she won't see it. But her friends' parents will, her teachers will. In a week, she'll be the kid whose dad is all over the internet for sleeping with his billionaire boss. We didn't sleep together. You think that matters? Truth is irrelevant when scandal is more interesting." Claire's voice was bitter. "God, I should have protected you better. Should have thought through—" "Stop," Ethan stood, cross to her. We made this choice together. You don't get to take all the blame. I'm the one with resources, power. I should have used them to shield you instead of what? Lying? Hiding? Spending years sneaking around like we were doing something wrong? He caught her shoulders, made her look at him. This is terrible. It's ugly. It's exactly as bad as we feared. But it's also honest. And I'll take honest and brutal over comfortable and false every single time. Her phone rang. Jennifer. Your father wants to see you. Now. He's waiting in the conference room. Tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes. Claire, he's not alone. The full board is here. Claire felt her stomach drop. It's almost 9 p.m. on a Friday. I know. They called an emergency session 10 minutes after your statement went live. Of course they had. She just handed them everything they needed to remove her. I'm on my way. She hung up, met Ethan's worried gaze. Emergency board meeting. They're going to use the statement to force me out. Then I'm coming with you. Ethan, no. That'll only make things worse. Worse than what? Worse than every news outlet in the country calling me a manipulative parasite? Worse than my daughter's name being dragged through this? His jaw set with determination. If they're going to crucify you for being with me, the least I can do is stand there and take some of the hits. They'll eviscerate you. They're already doing that. Might as well earn it. Against her better judgment, Claire let him come. They rode the elevator down to the conference level in tense silence, her hand finding his, both of them drawing strength from the contact. The boardroom was full when they arrived. All 12 members present, their faces ranging from sympathetic to furious. Her father sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Richard Ashford sat opposite, looking like a man who just won a long-fought battle. Every pair of eyes tracked to Ethan as he entered behind Claire. Mr. Brooks, Richard said, his voice dripping false courtesy. How kind of you to join us, though I don't recall extending an invitation. I'm here because this meeting is about me as much as it's about Claire, Ethan replied calmly. Seems only fair I get to hear what you plan to do to us. What we plan to do is restore sanity to this company's leadership, Patricia Chen interjected. Claire, what were you thinking? Releasing that statement without board approval? Confirming an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate? There was nothing inappropriate. Our relationship began after my engagement ended. Your engagement ended yesterday, and you were at his apartment last night in your wedding dress. Richard pulled out a tablet, turned it to show security footage. Building cameras captured you entering his residence at 8:37 p.m. You didn't leave until this morning, so forgive us for questioning the timeline. Claire felt Ethan tense beside her. I went to Ethan's apartment because I needed someone I trusted, someone who wouldn't judge me or try to manipulate me back into a marriage I didn't want. Yes, I stayed the night on his couch because I had nowhere else to go where I wouldn't be found and forced into conversations I wasn't ready to have. And we're supposed to believe nothing happened? Richard's skepticism was palpable. Believe what you want. I'm telling you the truth. The truth is you've compromised yourself and this company. Patricia's voice was sharp. You've created a hostile work environment by pursuing a subordinate. You've demonstrated catastrophically poor judgment, and you've made TechCore the subject of a media circus that's already affecting our stock price. Robert Hawthorne finally spoke. The stock dropped 4% in the last 2 hours. Our investors are panicking. Our partners are reconsidering contracts. This isn't just personal scandal, Claire. This is affecting the entire company. I understand that. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you seem to think your personal choices exist in a vacuum, that you can do whatever you want without consequences for the thousands of people who depend on this company. The words hit harder coming from her father. The disappointment in his voice was worse than Richard's anger. I never said there wouldn't be consequences, Claire said quietly. I said I was willing to face them. Are you willing to face them for him? Richard gestured at Ethan. For your employees, for your father who built this company from nothing? Yes, because the alternative is lying, and I'm done with that. Then you're done as CEO. Richard stood. I'm calling for an immediate vote. All those in favor of removing Claire Hawthorne from her position as Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately, indicate now. You can't do that, Robert protested. There are procedures, due process. which she violated by engaging in a relationship with an employee, by creating exactly the kind of scandal that damages shareholder value, by demonstrating she prioritizes personal desires over company welfare. Richard's voice was cold. We have cause. We have grounds, and we have the votes. Ethan stepped forward. Before you vote, you should know something. Claire didn't pursue me. I pursued her. The room went silent. What? Claire turned to him. It's true. I'm the one who crossed lines first. 3 months ago, I stayed late working on the Mitchell project. Claire was still in her office. I brought her coffee. We talked, and I told her I thought she was remarkable, not as a boss, as a person. Ethan's voice was steady despite the weight of 12 sets of eyes on him. She shut it down immediately, told me it was inappropriate, that we needed to maintain professional boundaries. I apologized and backed off. But I didn't stop feeling what I felt. Mr. Brooks, you're not helping your case, Patricia said. I'm not trying to help my case. I'm trying to tell you the truth about who pursued whom. He looked at Richard. You want to paint Claire as someone who abused her power? Who manipulated an employee? You're wrong. She did everything right. Maintained distance. Never acted on anything. Never even acknowledged there might be something there. Not until after she left that wedding, not until she'd already made the choice to walk away from Lawrence for her own reasons. That's a convenient narrative, Richard said. It's the truth. And if you want to fire someone for crossing professional lines, fire me. I'm the one who made it complicated first. Claire grabbed his arm. Ethan, stop. Don't sacrifice yourself. I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm making sure they know the facts before they destroy you for something that wasn't your fault. He turned back to the board. Claire Hawthorne is the best CEO this company has ever had. She tripled your value. She landed contracts that changed your market position. She turned her father's regional success story into a national powerhouse. And you're ready to throw that away because she fell in love with someone you think is beneath her? It's not about who she loves, Patricia said, though her voice had softened slightly. It's about judgment, optics, the appearance of impropriety. Then let's talk about optics. Ethan's voice gained strength. What does it say about this company if you fire the CEO who told the truth, who refused to marry someone for business reasons, who chose honesty over convenience? You think that makes you look principled? It makes you look like you value appearances over integrity. We value stability, Richard shot back. Something your girlfriend has destroyed. She destroyed a comfortable lie. There's a difference. Robert Hawthorne had been watching this exchange with an unreadable expression. Now he spoke, his voice measured. Mr. Brooks, you clearly care about my daughter. That's admirable. But this isn't about feelings. This is about whether Claire can continue to lead effectively given what's happened. Can she lead effectively? She's been doing it all day. Faced down Lawrence. Sat through your interrogation this afternoon. Released a statement taking full responsibility. And she's still here. Still fighting, still trying to do right by this company, even though you're all ready to abandon her. Ethan's voice was fierce now. You want to know about leadership? Watch what she does next, because I guarantee you, Claire Hawthorne will handle this crisis better than anyone else in this room would. The silence that followed was heavy with consideration. Finally, Jennifer Chen spoke, one of the board members who'd voted for Claire earlier. Robert, may I suggest something? Of course. We're making this decision in crisis mode, reacting instead of thinking strategically. She looked at Claire. You've admitted to a relationship with an employee. That's grounds for discipline, yes, but it's not necessarily grounds for removal, not if we handle it properly. What are you suggesting? Patricia asked. A formal ethics review. Independent investigation into the timeline and nature of the relationship. If it's confirmed that nothing inappropriate happened while Claire was engaged or before the relationship was disclosed, we move forward with appropriate measures, mandatory training, revised policies, whatever's needed. But we don't throw away our most successful CEO over a personal choice that didn't actually violate policy until we have all the facts. That could take weeks, Richard protested. Meanwhile, the media circus continues. The media circus continues either way, Jennifer interrupted. But if we fire Claire now, we look reactive, scared, like we're caving to pressure instead of following our own procedures. If we conduct a proper review, we look responsible, measured, like a company that takes ethics seriously enough to investigate thoroughly. Robert was nodding slowly. Jennifer has a point. We rushed into this afternoon's vote. We shouldn't make the same mistake tonight. You're letting your personal feelings cloud your judgment, Richard said sharply. She's your daughter. Which is exactly why I should recuse myself from this vote. And I do. Officially. Robert stood. But I'm also the founder of this company, and I'm telling you that hasty decisions made in anger rarely serve anyone well. Take the weekend, let emotions cool, review the facts, then make a decision you can all stand behind. Richard looked around the table, clearly calculating votes. Without Robert's automatic support for Claire, the math had shifted, but Jennifer's suggestion had planted doubt. Fine, he said finally. We table the vote until Monday. But Claire, you're on administrative leave until then. No company decisions, no public statements. And Mr. Brooks, he turned to Ethan, you're suspended pending the investigation's outcome. You can't suspend him for my choices, Claire protested. We can and will. If there's been any quid pro quo, promotions, preferential treatment, anything that suggests his relationship with you affected his employment, that's grounds for termination. Richard's smile was cold. And given that you've been his direct supervisor for 3 years, I'm certain we'll find something. Ethan's hand found Claire's under the table, squeezed gently. It's okay. Let them investigate. They won't find anything because there's nothing to find. We'll see about that. Richard gathered his papers. Meeting adjourned until Monday at 9 a.m. Claire, Ethan, I suggest you both retain lawyers. You're going to need them. The board filed out, some throwing sympathetic glances at Claire, others carefully avoiding eye contact. Her father lingered, clearly wanting to say something, but Richard was waiting, and the moment passed. When they were alone, Claire sank into a chair, the weight of everything crashing down. They're going to tear apart every decision I've made regarding you, every project assignment, every promotion, every conversation. Let them. They'll find that you were harder on me than anyone else, that you held me to higher standards because you were so careful about avoiding favoritism. Ethan pulled up a chair beside her. Claire, your integrity is going to save you here. You were so determined not to show preference that you actually made my job harder. Was I? The question came out small. I tried so hard not to let feelings affect decisions, but what if they did anyway? What if I unconsciously gave you opportunities? You didn't. If anything, you passed me over for things I'd earned because you were worried about appearances. He took her hand. Remember the Singapore project? I was the obvious choice to lead development. I had the most experience with that client base. But you gave it to Marcus instead because you didn't want people questioning why I got the assignment. I remember. You were angry. I was frustrated because I knew I'd earned it and you were punishing both of us for something we hadn't even acted on. His thumb traced her knuckles. That's what they're going to find, Claire. A pattern of you bending over backward to be fair, to avoid even the appearance of favoritism. Your integrity is bulletproof. Then why do I feel like I'm about to lose everything? Because you might. Because standing up for truth doesn't guarantee winning. It just guarantees you'll know you did the right thing when it's over. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya's school. Ms. Hawthorne, we've become aware of media attention surrounding Mr. Brooks. While we support our families, we want to ensure Maya's well-being. Can we schedule a meeting to discuss how to minimize disruption? Ethan read over her shoulder, his face going pale. They're worried about disruption. Jesus, she's 6 years old and they're trying to protect her, Claire said gently. That's their job. Their job is to educate her, not judge her father based on tabloid gossip. I know, but we need to get ahead of this. Talk to Maya before someone else does. Help her understand what's happening in age-appropriate terms. Ethan ran both hands through his hair, the first real crack in his composure showing. How do I explain to my daughter that the internet thinks her dad is a bad person? That people are saying terrible things about choices I made that have nothing to do with her? You tell her the truth. The simple version. That you care about someone, that some people don't understand, but that it doesn't change how much you love her or how good a dad you are. And when her friends' parents don't let them play with her anymore, when she gets teased at school, when she asks me why people are being mean, The raw pain in his voice broke Claire's heart. This was exactly what she'd feared, the consequences of her choices falling on people who didn't deserve them. Maybe I should step back, she said quietly. Maybe if I release another statement, say it was a mistake, that I was confused. We could claim it was temporary insanity brought on by stress and... No, Ethan's voice was firm. We're not lying, not even to protect Maya, because you know what's worse than her dealing with this mess? Her learning that sometimes we pretend to be people we're not, because it's easier. That we lie about what matters to make other people comfortable. She's 6, Ethan. She shouldn't have to be brave about her father's love life. She's 6, and she's already braver than most adults I know. She watched her mother die. She rebuilt her life in a new city with a grieving father who barely knew how to function. She can handle this. He pulled Claire closer. What she can't handle is me teaching her that love is something to be ashamed of, that telling the truth is wrong if people don't like the answer. You're sure? I'm terrified, but I'm sure. He kissed her forehead. We go talk to her together. We explain what's happening, and we show her that sometimes doing the right thing is hard, but we do it anyway. They left the office at 10 p.m., taking separate cars to avoid photos of them together. Claire drove through rain-slick streets to Ethan's apartment, her mind racing through possible scenarios, trying to prepare for a conversation she had no template for. Maya was still awake when they arrived, being watched by Ethan's neighbor, Mrs. Chen, a kind woman in her 70s who'd helped with childcare since they'd moved to Seattle. Thank you for staying late, Ethan said. I know this is beyond... Hush. That baby needed someone. I stayed, simple as that. Mrs. Chen gathered her knitting, then paused. Those people on the news, they don't know you, don't know your heart. Anyone who's watched you with Maya knows what kind of man you are. The kindness in her voice made Ethan's eyes shine with moisture. Thank you. After she left, they found Maya in the living room building an elaborate castle out of blocks. Daddy! She launched herself at him, all wild curls and 6-year-old energy. You're home. Mrs. Chen let me stay up because you were working late and... She noticed Claire, her expression brightening. The princess came back. Hi, sweetheart. Claire knelt down to her level. Your castle is beautiful. It's for a queen who doesn't need a prince. She has a dragon friend instead. Maya returned to her construction. Miss Rachel at school said princes are optional. I think she's right. Ethan and Claire exchanged glances. Maya, honey, can you sit down for a minute? We need to talk to you about something. The seriousness in his tone made Maya pause. She settled on the couch, elephant clutched to her chest, her small face suddenly worried. Did I do something wrong? No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong, but something's happening that might affect you, and we want you to hear about it from us first. Okay. Her voice was very small. Ethan sat beside her, Claire taking the chair opposite. You know how people sometimes care about each other? How Daddy cared about Mommy? Maya nodded. Well, sometimes grown-ups develop feelings for someone new, and that's what's happened with me and Claire. Maya looked between them, processing. You like her? Like her? Despite everything, Claire had to suppress a smile at the elementary school phrasing. Yes, like her. And she likes me, too. Oh. Maya seemed to consider this. Is that bad? No, it's not bad. But some people think it is because Claire is my boss at work. And those people are talking about it on the news and on the internet. What are they saying? Ethan's jaw tightened. They're saying some unkind things about me, about Claire. And some of those things might affect you. How? People might talk to you about it, ask you questions. Maybe some kids at school might say things because their parents have been watching the news. He pulled her closer. And I need you to know that none of what's being said changes anything about us, about our family, about how much I love you. Maya was quiet for a long moment, her child's mind working through adult complications. Finally, she looked at Claire. Do you make my daddy happy? The question was so direct, so achingly simple, that Claire felt tears prick her eyes. I hope so. He makes me very happy. Good. Because he's been sad since Mommy died. Not all the time. But sometimes I see it, like he's happy on the outside but still sad underneath. Maya turned to her father. Are you still sad underneath? Ethan's voice was thick with emotion. A little. I'll always miss Mommy, but Claire makes the sad part smaller, makes me remember what it feels like to be happy all the way through. Then I don't care what people say. Maya's voice was matter of fact. If someone makes you happy, that's good. Miss Rachel says we should be kind and happy is important, so if people are being mean about it, they're wrong. It's not quite that simple, sweetheart. Why not? Maya looked genuinely confused. If you're not hurting anyone and you're happy, why does it matter what other people think? Out of the mouths of babes, Claire thought, a 6-year-old had just articulated what she'd been struggling to explain to a boardroom full of adults. You're absolutely right, Claire said softly. It shouldn't matter. But sometimes grown-ups make things complicated. Grown-ups make everything complicated. Maya sighed with the weight of ancient wisdom. Zoe's parents got divorced and everyone asked me if I was worried you'd find a new wife and forget about Mommy. But I said you wouldn't because you're not dumb. You can love Mommy and still like someone new. Hearts don't run out of room. Ethan pulled his daughter into his lap, holding her tight. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just forget sometimes because I'm small. She snuggled against him, then reached out a hand to Claire. Can you come sit with us? Claire moved to the couch, and Maya immediately arranged them so she was between them, one small hand holding each of theirs. There. Now we're together. And if people say mean things, we're together, so it's okay. They sat like that for a long time, an improbable, impossible little unit against the world. Eventually, Maya yawned, the late hour catching up with her. Ethan carried her to bed, and Claire heard him reading her a story through the thin walls, his voice gentle and steady. When he emerged 20 minutes later, he looked exhausted. She took it better than I expected, he said. She's remarkable. You've raised someone extraordinary. I've raised someone who's had to deal with too much loss already, and now I'm adding scandal to the list. You're also showing her what it looks like to be honest, to stand up for what matters. That's worth something. Ethan sank onto the couch beside her. Monday's going to be brutal. The investigation, the board. Richard Ashford is going to find every email we've ever exchanged and twist it into evidence of impropriety. Let him look. We've been professional, careful. There's nothing to find. Except 3 years of me being half in love with you and trying to hide it. That's not a crime. That's just human. Her phone buzzed again. Another news alert. She glanced at it, felt her stomach drop. Breaking. Anonymous source claims Claire Hawthorne promised employee promotions in exchange for relationship. No. The word came out sharp. That's a lie. That never... I know it's a lie. You know it's a lie. But they don't need truth. They just need a story that sells. Ethan took the phone from her, set it aside. This is how they're going to play it. Anonymous sources. Unverifiable claims. Death by 1,000 cuts until your reputation is so damaged the board has no choice but to remove you. Richard's behind this. Has to be. He's feeding stories to the press. Can you prove it? No, which is exactly why he's doing it this way. Claire stood, began pacing again. God, I should have seen this coming. Should have known he wouldn't just fight fair in the boardroom. He'll use every weapon he has. Then we need weapons too. Like what? I've already told the truth. I don't have dirty secrets to leak or anonymous sources to deploy. My only ammunition is honesty, and that's not enough against someone willing to lie. Then we make it enough. Ethan's voice was determined. We document everything, every decision you made regarding me, every project, every review. We build a timeline that proves beyond doubt that you never showed favoritism, that if anything, you were harder on me than anyone else. That'll take days. The vote is Monday. Then we work all weekend. I'll pull my personnel file. You access your decision logs. We'll build a case so airtight they can't ignore it. Claire looked at him, this man who'd already lost so much, who was now offering to spend his weekend building a defense for her job. Why are you doing this? The question came out broken. Why are you fighting so hard for me when walking away would make your life infinitely easier? Because 3 years ago I was drowning. Grief, single parenthood, trying to rebuild in a city where I knew no one. And the first person who made me feel like maybe I could survive was you." He stood, crossed to her. "You didn't know it. Didn't know that every time you asked how I was doing, every time you noticed when I was struggling, every small kindness, it mattered. It pulled me back from the edge bit by bit. Ethan, I'm not walking away from the person who saved me just because staying is hard. I'm not that man, and you're not the woman who gives up when things get complicated." He cupped her face. "So we fight. Together. Whatever it takes." The kiss was different this time. Not desperate or claiming, but steady. A promise of partnership in the face of impossible odds. When they broke apart, Claire felt something shift inside her. A settling of resolve. A clarification of purpose. "Okay," she said. "We fight, but we do it my way." "What's your way?" "Full transparency. Complete honesty. We don't just prove there was no impropriety. We show them exactly what did happen. How we fell in love despite every reason not to. How we tried to deny it. How we maintained boundaries until I'd already walked away from Lawrence. We give them the whole story, the real story, and we trust that truth is more compelling than whatever lies Richard's spinning. That's risky. Opening ourselves up like that. Everything about this is risky. Might as well risk it, honestly." They worked through the night, building a comprehensive timeline. Claire's decision logs showed a pattern of her actually passing Ethan over for opportunities. The Singapore project, the lead architect role on the Martinez account, the chance to present at the tech conference. Every instance where he'd been qualified, but she'd chosen someone else. His performance reviews showed high marks, but nothing that stood out as preferential. If anything, her feedback was more critical of his work than any other employee's. Their email history was scrupulously professional. No flirtation. No personal conversations, just project updates and technical discussions. "This is good," Ethan said as dawn began to break. "This shows you were actually more careful with me than with other employees. Because I was terrified someone would notice how I felt. So I overcompensated." Claire rubbed her eyes, exhaustion making everything feel surreal. "God, 3 years of loving you and being too scared to admit it. What a waste." "Not a waste. Necessary. We weren't ready. I wasn't ready. Maya needed stability, and I needed to actually process Sarah's death before I could be present for someone new." He took her hand across the scattered documents. "And you needed to figure out who you were outside of everyone else's expectations. We got here when we were supposed to." "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, all this pain is for nothing." Her phone rang. Her father. She answered on speaker. "Claire, I need you to listen very carefully." The tone made her straighten. "What's wrong?" "Richard's not waiting until Monday. He's called another emergency session for this afternoon. 1 p.m. He has 3 more board members ready to vote for your removal." "He can't do that. We agreed to wait until Monday." "He found something, or claims he did. An email from Ethan to a colleague 2 years ago. Something about you." Robert's voice was grim. "I don't know what it says yet, but he's using it as evidence that this relationship has been going on longer than you claimed." Ethan had gone pale. "What email?" "To another software developer, Marcus Chen. Apparently you mentioned Claire in it." Claire watched Ethan's face cycle through confusion to sudden realization. "Oh God, the after-work drinks, I remember. Marcus was asking if I was ever going to date again. I said something stupid like..." He stopped, looking horrified. "Like what?" Claire pressed. "Like the only woman I'd been even remotely interested in was completely off limits." "And when he pushed, I said..." Ethan closed his eyes. "I said, even if Claire Hawthorne wasn't my boss, she's so far out of my league, we're not even playing the same sport. But watching her work is like watching an artist. Makes me remember what it feels like to admire someone." Silence fell. "That's it?" Robert asked. "That's what Richard's using?" "That's an admission that I had feelings 2 years ago, while Claire was engaged to Lawrence, while she was still his boss." Ethan's voice was flat. "Richard will frame it as proof we've been carrying on an affair for years, that Claire left Lawrence for me, that everything we've said about the timeline is a lie." "It's not an affair if we never acted on it," Claire protested. "Try explaining that distinction to a hostile board already looking for reasons to remove you." Her father's sigh was heavy. Claire, this is bad. This gives them exactly what they need to claim your judgment has been compromised for years, that you've been lying about when the relationship started, that you prioritize personal feelings over company welfare long before yesterday. Claire felt the walls closing in. Every defense they'd built, every piece of evidence they'd gathered, all of it undermined by one casual comment in an email sent 2 years ago. What do I do? The question came out smaller than she'd intended. You come to the meeting, you tell the truth, again, and you hope that enough people believe you. Robert paused. And Claire, you should prepare for the possibility that this time truth won't be enough. The call ended. Ethan and Claire sat in the wreckage of their carefully built defense, dawn light streaming through the windows, the sounds of the city waking up around them. I'm so sorry, Ethan whispered. If I just kept my mouth shut, if I hadn't... Don't apologize for being honest with a friend, for acknowledging feelings you never acted on. Claire took his hands. This isn't your fault. It's Richard's fault for weaponizing normal human emotion. Normal human emotion that's about to cost you everything. Maybe. Or maybe it's about to show the board who they really are, whether they're people who can tell the difference between feelings and actions, between attraction and impropriety. She stood, squaring her shoulders. Either way, we find out today. At 12:30, they arrived at TechCore together. No more hiding, no more separate entrances. If the board was going to remove her for loving Ethan Brooks, they could damn well see them walk in side by side. The press outside went wild, cameras flashing, questions shouted, microphones thrust forward. Claire, did you have an affair? Ethan, how long have you been sleeping with your boss? Is it true you were promised promotions? What do you say to people calling this the biggest scandal in tech this year? They kept walking, hands linked, refusing to engage. Security cleared a path to the entrance. Inside, the boardroom was already full. All 12 members present. Richard Ashford sitting at the head of the table like he already owned the place. Claire took her seat. Ethan stood against the back wall. He wasn't a board member, but she'd be damned if she faced this without him in the room. Richard wasted no time. Thank you all for coming on short notice. I've called this meeting because new evidence has come to light that fundamentally changes our understanding of Ms. Hawthorne's fitness to lead. He projected the email onto the screen. Ethan's words to Marcus from 2 years ago, displayed for everyone to read. This email proves that Mr. Brooks has had romantic feelings for Ms. Hawthorne for at least 2 years, while she was engaged, while she was his direct supervisor, while she was making decisions that affected his career. Richard's voice was triumphant. This isn't a recent development. This is a long-term, inappropriate relationship that Ms. Hawthorne has lied about repeatedly. I didn't lie. Claire's voice cut through the room. I said our relationship began after I left Lawrence. That's true. Having feelings isn't the same as having a relationship. Semantics. The point is, you've been compromised for years. Every decision you made regarding Mr. Brooks has been tainted by emotional involvement. Show me one decision. One single choice I made that gave Ethan preferential treatment. Claire pulled out the documentation they'd compiled. Because I can show you a dozen times I passed him over for opportunities he deserved because I was so careful about avoiding even the appearance of favoritism. She handed out copies of the timeline. The board members began reading, expressions shifting as they processed the evidence. This shows the opposite of favoritism, Jennifer Chen said slowly. This shows Claire holding Mr. Brooks to a higher standard than other employees. Because she was covering, Richard insisted, overcompensating to hide the affair. It wasn't an affair! Ethan's voice rang out from the back of the room. I admired her from a distance, had feelings I never expressed to her, maintained complete professionalism for 3 years because I knew my position made anything else impossible. That email to Marcus was me being honest with a friend about feelings I was never going to act on. Until she needed someone after walking out on Lawrence, Richard said. How convenient. It wasn't convenient. It was terrifying. Claire stood, facing the board directly. You want to know the truth? The whole truth. Here it is. I've been half in love with Ethan Brooks since 6 months after he started working here. I've spent 3 years pretending I wasn't. 3 years staying engaged to a man I didn't love because it was expected. Safe. Good for business. 3 years making myself smaller and quieter and more acceptable so no one would question whether I deserved my position. She looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. And 2 days ago, I was standing in a bridal suite about to promise forever to someone I couldn't even like. And I realized I was done. Done pretending. Done letting fear of judgment control my choices. Done being who everyone else needed me to be instead of who I actually am. Her voice strengthened. So yes, I walked away from my wedding. I went to Ethan's apartment. I told him the truth. And the next day, I told all of you the truth. Because I'd rather lose this position honestly than keep it through deception. Very moving, Richard said. But it doesn't change the facts. You've demonstrated catastrophically poor judgment. You've created a scandal that's affecting company value. And you've lied about the timeline of your involvement with an employee. I haven't lied about anything. And if you fire me for telling the truth, after years of maintaining professional boundaries despite personal feelings, you're not protecting this company. You're teaching everyone who works here that honesty is punished and lies are rewarded. She paused. Is that really the culture you want to build? The silence was absolute. Finally, her father spoke. I'm recused from this vote, but I want to say something first. He looked at Claire, his expression complex. I built this company on the principle that good work speaks louder than pedigree, that integrity matters more than connections, that we judge people by what they do, not who they love. His voice wavered slightly. My daughter has demonstrated more integrity in the last 2 days than most people show in a lifetime. She's told hard truths, faced brutal consequences, refused to compromise her values even when lying would have been easier. And if we punish that, if we remove her for being honest, we lose something fundamental about who we are as a company. Robert, your bias is clear, Richard started. My bias is toward my life's work, toward the values I built this company on, and toward recognizing that sometimes the hardest right thing looks like the wrong choice until history proves otherwise. Robert stood. Vote however your conscience dictates, but know that this decision will define TechCore's character far more than Claire's personal life ever could. He left the room. Richard called for the vote. All those in favor of removing Claire Hawthorne as CEO indicate now. 4 hands rose. Richard's, Patricia's. 2 others who'd always been Ashford allies. Those opposed? 6 hands. Jennifer Chen, the 3 board members who'd consistently supported Claire's business decisions, and 2 others who'd been on the fence. Motion fails. Ms. Hawthorne retains her position. Jennifer's voice was firm. Richard's face went red. This is absurd. You're letting personal sympathy. We're letting evidence guide our decision. Claire's provided documentation proving she maintained appropriate professional distance. The only thing your email proves is that Ethan Brooks had feelings he never acted on. That's not grounds for removal. That's being human. The media will crucify her. Us. The stock will continue to drop. Then we'll handle it, together, like a company that stands behind its leadership instead of abandoning them at the first sign of trouble. Jennifer turned to Claire. You're still CEO, but you need to address this, publicly, transparently. Turn the narrative from scandal to integrity. Claire nodded, not quite trusting her voice. The board filed out, leaving her alone with Ethan. She'd survived, barely, by the narrowest of margins, but she'd survived telling the truth. And somehow, impossibly, that felt like winning. Ethan crossed the empty boardroom and pulled Claire into his arms. She was shaking, adrenaline and relief and exhaustion all hitting at once. You did it, he murmured against her hair. You actually did it. We did it. That timeline you helped build, that documentation, it saved me. She pulled back to look at him. But Ethan, 6-4. That's not a mandate. That's barely hanging on. One person changes their mind and I'm out. Then we make sure no one changes their mind. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer Chen. Press conference, 2 p.m. You need to control this narrative before Richard does. I'm arranging it now. Claire showed it to Ethan. 2 hours to figure out what to say to the entire world. You tell them the same thing you told the board, the truth. The board had evidence, documentation. The press just wants blood. Then give them something better. Give them a story about choosing integrity over convenience, about a CEO who'd rather risk everything than live a lie. He took her hands. Claire, you're not just fighting for your job anymore. You're fighting for the principle that honesty matters, that people at the top should be held to standards of character, not just profit. She looked at this man who'd somehow become her anchor in the chaos. When did you get so wise? About 3 years ago, when I met a woman who made me want to be braver than I actually am. The kiss was interrupted by Jennifer herself appearing in the doorway. Claire, we need to prep. The media is already gathering. Richard's camp is feeding them questions designed to corner you. We need a strategy. For the next 90 minutes, they worked through potential questions and answers. Jennifer played devil's advocate, throwing every hostile inquiry she could imagine. Did you have an affair with your employee? No, I had feelings for someone who happened to work for me. Feelings I never acted on until after I'd already left my engagement for completely separate reasons. You expect people to believe nothing happened for 3 years? I expect people to understand the difference between attraction and action, between having feelings and acting on them inappropriately. Your company's stock has dropped 8% since Friday. How do you justify putting personal desires ahead of shareholder value? I justify it by refusing to believe that my personal integrity is separate from my professional value. A CEO who lies about fundamental aspects of their life is a CEO who will lie about other things. I'd rather lead honestly than profitably through deception. Jennifer nodded approvingly. Good. Keep that energy, direct, unapologetic. Don't let them make you defensive. At 1:50, Claire stood in the TechCore lobby where they'd set up a podium and microphones. Through the glass doors, she could see the crowd, reporters, cameras, curious onlookers, the feeding frenzy waiting to devour whatever she said next. Ethan stood off to the side, out of camera range but visible to her, a steady presence, a reminder of why this mattered. Jennifer gave her a nod. Ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. They opened the doors. The noise was immediate and overwhelming. Shouted questions, camera shutters clicking, the general chaos of media in a frenzy. Claire stepped to the podium, waited for quiet. When it didn't come, she simply started speaking, her voice cutting through the din. My name is Claire Hawthorne. I'm the CEO of TechCore Solutions, and I'm here to tell you the truth about what happened this weekend. The crowd settled, sensing she wasn't going to be rattled. On Thursday evening, I left my wedding to Lawrence Ashford. I did this not because of another man, but because I realized I was about to promise forever to someone I don't love and never have. I left because I'd spent my entire life making choices based on what was expected rather than what was true, and I was done. She paused, let that sink in. After leaving, I went to the home of a colleague, Ethan Brooks, someone I trust. Someone I'd developed feelings for over the past 3 years. Feelings I never acted on, never acknowledged, never allowed to affect my professional decisions. Because I understood the boundaries of my position and I respected them absolutely. A reporter shouted, "But you did act on them eventually." Yes, after I'd already ended my engagement, after I'd already made the choice to walk away from a marriage that was never right. I told Ethan the truth about how I felt, and he told me he felt the same way. That's when our relationship began. Not before. Not during my engagement. After. Your former employee, Marcus Chen's email suggests Mr. Brooks had feelings for you 2 years ago. Having feelings isn't the same as acting on them. Ethan Brooks admired me from a distance. He never expressed those feelings to me, never crossed professional lines, never did anything inappropriate. And I never knew about them until after I'd already left Lawrence. If having unspoken feelings for your boss is a crime, half the workforce would be guilty. But as CEO, you have power over him. Isn't any relationship inherently coercive? Claire had expected this. That's a fair question, and it's exactly why I maintained such strict boundaries for 3 years. It's why I documented every decision I made regarding Ethan's career. It's why I actually held him to higher standards than other employees. Because I was terrified of showing favoritism. The board has reviewed this documentation. They found no evidence of preferential treatment. If anything, I penalized him for my own feelings by passing him over for opportunities he'd earned. So you admit you let personal feelings affect professional decisions? I admit I bent over backward to ensure personal feelings didn't affect professional decisions. There's a difference. Another reporter jumped in. Your company's stock has dropped significantly. Investors are nervous. How do you justify staying in your position when your personal choices are affecting shareholder value? I justify it by believing that long-term shareholder value depends on leadership with integrity. A CEO who lies about who they are will lie about other things. A CEO who makes decisions based on what's expedient rather than what's true will compromise in other areas. I'd rather lead this company honestly, even if it's uncomfortable in the short term, than build success on a foundation of deception. That's easy to say when you're not the one losing money. It's not easy to say at all. It's terrifying. I know some investors will walk away. I know some partnerships might dissolve. I know this decision has cost the company in measurable ways. But I also know that TechCore was built on principles of integrity and innovation. My father founded this company on the idea that good work matters more than good connections, that character counts. And I refuse to abandon those principles just because living them is harder than lying. The questions kept coming, relentless and probing. Claire answered each one as directly as she could, refusing to dodge or deflect. Are you in love with Ethan Brooks? Yes? Does that mean you'll resign to avoid conflicts of interest? No. It means I'll continue to document decisions, maintain transparency, and hold myself to the highest ethical standards. Love doesn't make me less capable of leadership. If anything, it makes me more human. More able to understand that the people I lead have complex lives and feelings that don't disappear just because they're at work. What about the optics? A billionaire CEO with a lower-level employee? Doesn't that perpetuate problematic power dynamics? It would if I'd used my power to pursue him. I didn't. I maintained boundaries. I never made advances. I never created a situation where he felt pressured or obligated. Our relationship began when I was at my most vulnerable, having just walked away from everything. He could have taken advantage of that moment. He didn't. He offered kindness and honesty. And when we both acknowledged our feelings, we did so as equals. Not as boss and employee, but as two people who'd been carefully, painfully avoiding exactly this for 3 years. Your former fiancé, Lawrence Ashford, released a statement calling you unstable and suggesting you need professional help. Claire's jaw tightened. Lawrence Ashford is a man who can't accept that someone chose to leave him. He's weaponizing mental health stigma to discredit me because his pride was wounded. I'm not unstable, I'm honest. And if he can't tell the difference, that says more about him than it does about me. The press conference lasted 45 minutes. By the end, Claire's voice was hoarse and her composure was hanging by a thread. But she'd said everything she needed to say. Jennifer stepped in. That's all for today. Thank you. As they moved back inside, away from the cameras and chaos, Claire's legs nearly gave out. Ethan was there immediately, supporting her weight. You were incredible, he said. I was desperate. There's a difference. She leaned against him, no longer caring who saw. Did I make it worse? Did I just give them more ammunition? You gave them the truth. What they do with it is up to them. Jennifer was already monitoring social media on her phone. Initial response is mixed. Some people are calling you brave. Others are calling you reckless. But she looked up, something like hope in her expression. There's a thread gaining traction. Women talking about times they stayed in wrong relationships because leaving seemed impossible. People sharing stories about hiding who they really are at work. It's resonating. Resonating doesn't pay investors back for lost value, Claire said quietly. No, but it might remind people that companies are run by humans, and humans are messy and complicated, and sometimes they have to make impossible choices. Jennifer put her phone away. The board gave you a reprieve. Don't waste it. Show them that your honesty makes you stronger, not weaker. Over the next several days, the storm raged on. Think pieces were written. Late-night comedians made jokes. The hashtag #RunawayBride trended and then evolved into hashtag #BraveCEO and then into something more complex that defied easy categorization. Claire's stock price stabilized, then began a slow climb back. Not because investors suddenly embraced scandal, but because she went on offense. She appeared on financial news programs and talked not about her personal life, but about TechCore's 5-year growth strategy. She released detailed quarterly reports that showed the company's fundamental strength. She announced a new partnership that had been in negotiation for months, proof that her professional work hadn't stopped just because her personal life exploded. and she was honest. Painfully, vulnerably honest in every interview. When asked on Bloomberg if she regretted leaving her wedding, she said, "I regret the pain it caused people I care about. I regret the timing and the spectacle. But I don't regret choosing truth over convenience. I'd make the same choice again." When asked on CNBC about maintaining authority after such public upheaval, she said, "Authority that depends on perfection is fragile. Authority built on competence and integrity is sustainable. I'd rather be a CEO my employees trust to be honest than one they think is infallible." Slowly, the narrative began to shift. Not everywhere, not completely, but enough. A prominent female venture capitalist wrote an op-ed defending Claire's choice to prioritize personal authenticity. A male tech CEO admitted in an interview that he'd stayed in a loveless marriage for years because divorce looked bad for business and wished he'd had Claire's courage earlier. But the professional cost was still real. 3 major investors pulled out. 2 board members who'd voted to keep her began making noise about reconsidering in light of ongoing instability. And Richard Ashford was relentless in his campaign to undermine her. The personal cost was worse. Maya's school requested that Ethan come in for a meeting. They sat in the principal's office on a Wednesday afternoon, the same chairs where Ethan had attended parent-teacher conferences about Maya's progress. Now they were here to discuss the current situation. Principal Anderson was a kind woman in her 50s who'd always been supportive. Now she looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Brooks, we want to start by saying that Maya is a wonderful child. Creative, kind, smart. We adore having her here." "I hear a but coming," Ethan said quietly. "But we've had several parents express concerns about the media attention, about their children being exposed to, she searched for words, adult situations through association with Maya." Claire felt rage building in her chest. "Maya is 6 years old. She hasn't done anything wrong. You're going to punish her because her father fell in love?" "We're not punishing anyone. We're trying to navigate a delicate situation. Some parents have requested their children not be placed in the same reading groups as Maya. Others have expressed concern about playdates." "Those parents are being bigoted and cruel," Claire said flatly. "And you're enabling them by taking this meeting instead of telling them their concerns are inappropriate." "Ms. Hawthorne, I understand you're protective of Maya." "I'm not being protective. I'm being accurate. Maya's father has done nothing wrong. I've done nothing wrong. We've been honest about caring for each other, and you're allowing other parents to ostracize a child because they disapprove of her father's relationship. That's discrimination." Principal Anderson's expression tightened. "I assure you, we don't condone discrimination." "Then act like it. Tell those parents that Maya is welcome here and will be treated like any other student. Tell them their personal opinions about her father's relationship are irrelevant to her education. And make it clear that any child who bullies Maya over this will face consequences." Claire's voice was ice. "Or I will make sure every news outlet that's been following this story knows that your school is punishing a 6-year-old for her father's honesty." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a promise. I've spent the last week being dragged through the press. I'm not letting Maya experience the same without fighting back." Ethan put a hand on Claire's arm. "Principal Anderson, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. I'd like to meet with these parents, directly. Answer their questions. Help them understand that Maya's home life is stable and loving, that what they're reading in the news is sensationalized and incomplete. I don't think that's wise. I think it's necessary, because right now they're forming opinions based on headlines. Let me give them the truth." His voice was firm. "And let me be clear. If Maya is treated differently because of me, I will remove her from this school and make very sure everyone knows why. She deserves better than to be collateral damage in adults' judgment." The meeting ended with tense assurances that the school would monitor the situation. Walking out to the parking lot, Claire was still furious. They should have shut that down immediately. Those parents have no right. They have every right to their opinions. We can't control that. Ethan's voice was tired. But we can control whether Maya sees us falling apart over it. She needs to see us handling this with dignity. "I don't feel dignified. I feel like burning that school to the ground." Despite everything, he smiled. "That's because you're a fighter.
But Maya doesn't need fighters right now. She needs people who'll show her how to walk through ugliness without becoming ugly themselves. They picked Maya up together.
She came bounding out of the after-school program with her usual energy, chattering about the papier-mâché volcano her class was building. And Ms. Rachel says mine can be purple because regular lava is boring, and why shouldn't volcanoes be creative? She climbed into her car seat. Can Claire come over for dinner? I want to show her my volcano design. Claire has work, sweetheart, Ethan said carefully. No, I don't. Claire met his eyes in the rearview mirror. I'd love to see your volcano design. Maya's resulting cheer was worth whatever professional crisis Claire was neglecting. That evening, in Ethan's small apartment, something shifted. Claire sat on the floor with Maya, helping paint a cardboard volcano purple and silver, while Ethan made spaghetti. It was domestic and simple, and completely removed from boardrooms and press conferences. Why purple? Claire asked, genuinely curious. Because everyone expects red. But what if there's a magic volcano that shoots out sparkles instead of lava? Or what if it's on another planet where everything is different colors? Maya applied glitter with serious concentration. Ms. Rachel says thinking different is good. That's how we invent things. Ms. Rachel is very smart. She is. She also said that people who judge others without knowing them are scared. And when people are scared, they're mean. But we don't have to be mean back. We can just be ourselves louder. Claire glanced at Ethan, who was listening from the kitchen. Did Miss Rachel say that recently? Maya nodded. Yesterday. After Zoe's mom said Zoe couldn't play with me anymore. I was sad. But Miss Rachel said some people get scared when other people are brave, and that's not my fault. Claire felt her throat tighten. Maya had been dealing with this at school, being excluded, facing consequences for her father's choices, and she was handling it with more grace than most adults Claire knew. Your teacher is right. And Maya, you're one of the bravest people I know. I'm not brave, I'm just me. Being yourself when people want you to be something else is the definition of brave. They ate dinner together, spaghetti and salad and garlic bread. Maya dominated conversation with stories about her classmates and questions about Claire's office and theories about whether dragons would like Italian food. It was chaotic and warm and exactly what Claire had been missing in her carefully orchestrated life. After Maya went to bed, Claire and Ethan sat on the couch in the quiet apartment. She's being ostracized, Claire said. Kids her age shouldn't have to deal with this. No, but she is dealing with it, and she's doing it better than we are. Ethan took her hand. Maya understands something we keep forgetting. Other people's judgment doesn't change who we are. It just reveals who they are. When did your 6-year-old become a philosopher? When she had to grow up too fast because life didn't give her a choice. His voice carried old grief. Losing Sarah taught her that things change, that people leave, that life isn't fair. But it also taught her that you keep going anyway, that you find new ways to be happy, that love doesn't run out just because someone's gone. She said that, about hearts not running out of room. It's her favorite thing about love, that it's infinite, that you can love someone who died and still love someone new, that both things can be true at once. He looked at Claire. She got that from Sarah. Her mom used to say that love expands to hold whatever we need it to hold, that the heart is more flexible than we think. I wish I could have known her. She would have liked you. Sarah was all about honesty, about being real. She had no patience for pretense or games. Ethan smiled at the memory. She would have looked at this whole situation and said something like, well, you made it complicated, but at least you made it true. That was her highest compliment, calling something true. Claire rested her head on his shoulder. I'm making Maya's life harder. You're making Maya's life more complex. That's different. Harder implies damage. Complex just means there are more layers to navigate. He kissed her hair. And honestly, I think watching you handle this with integrity is teaching her more valuable lessons than a smooth, easy childhood ever would. That's a generous interpretation. It's an accurate interpretation. Maya's learning that sometimes doing the right thing is costly, that standing up for what you believe has consequences, that you can survive judgment and come out stronger. His arm tightened around her. Those are lessons that'll serve her better than being popular with Zoe's mom ever could. They sat in comfortable silence, the city sounds filtering through the windows. After everything, the chaos, the scandal, the brutal public examination, this quiet moment felt stolen, precious. Claire's phone buzzed, a text from her father. "Dinner tomorrow? Just us. We need to talk." She showed it to Ethan. "That sounds ominous," he said. "Everything with my father sounds ominous. It's his default setting." "Are you going?" "I should. We haven't actually really talked, since all this happened. He voted to keep me as CEO, but I don't know if that was about supporting my choice or protecting his legacy." "Does it matter which?" "Maybe. I'd like to think my father can separate his daughter from his company, but I'm not sure he can." The next evening, Claire met Robert Hawthorne at a quiet restaurant far from downtown, the kind of place where business titans went when they didn't want to be seen or photographed. He was already seated when she arrived, looking older somehow. The stress of the past week had left marks. "Claire." He stood, kissed her cheek. "Thank you for coming." "Of course." They ordered, the ritual of menus and wine lists providing buffer against harder conversation. Only after the waiter left did Robert speak what was really on his mind. "I need to know if you're staying." Claire blinked. "Staying where?" "At TechCore, as CEO. If this is just a stepping stone to something else, if you're using the company as a platform to, I don't know, make some point about authenticity that ends with you leaving to pursue other interests." "Dad, I'm not leaving. Why would you think that?" "Because you walked away from Lawrence without a backward glance. Because you've upended your entire life in a matter of days. Because you seem more than willing to burn everything down if it serves your principles." His voice was strained. "And I need to know if my company is next. TechCore isn't yours anymore. It's mine. Legally, structurally. I've been CEO for 5 years. You retired. I built it from nothing. Every brick, every contract, every decision that made it what it is today, that was me. And I handed it to you because I trusted you to protect it, to grow it, not to use it as leverage in some personal rebellion." The words stung. "Is that what you think this is? Rebellion?" "I think you're going through something, a crisis, a reckoning, whatever you want to call it, and I think you're willing to sacrifice professional stability for personal authenticity, which is admirable, noble even, but it's not sustainable." "Why not?" Robert leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. "Because leading a company requires compromise, requires playing politics, requires making decisions that aren't always aligned with your personal values because they serve the greater good. You can't lead effectively if you're constantly prioritizing your own truth over strategic necessity." "I disagree. I think I can't lead effectively if I'm constantly lying about fundamental aspects of who I am. How can employees trust my judgment if they can't trust my word? How can investors believe my projections if they think I'm willing to misrepresent reality when it's convenient? There's a difference between lying and maintaining appropriate boundaries between personal and professional." "Is there? Because it seems to me that the boundaries you're describing are just polite words for acceptable deception." Claire met her father's eyes. "You married Mom because it made business sense, built a marriage on strategy instead of love. And you're telling me that worked, that it was worth it. But Dad, you're 70 years old and I can count on one hand the times I've seen you genuinely happy. Is that really the legacy you want? Success built on settling?" Robert's face went through several emotions. Anger, pain, something that might have been recognition. "Your mother and I have built a good life together. You've built a functional partnership. That's not the same as a good life. And you think what you have with Ethan Brooks is better? A relationship that's cost you investors, board support, public reputation? That's made your daughter's classmates avoid her? Maya's not my daughter. Yet. But she will be if you stay with him. And then what? You become a stepmother to a child who's being ostracized because of choices you made? You think that's better than what your mother and I have?" Claire felt something cold settle in her chest. "What are you really asking me, Dad?" "I'm asking if you've thought this through. Really thought it through. Not the romantic version where love conquers all. The practical version where you're a billionaire CEO trying to blend your life with a widowed single father who makes $90,000 a year. where you're navigating co-parenting and school politics, and whether he's comfortable with your wealth or resentful of it, where you're constantly defending your relationship to boards and investors and the public. I've thought about all of that. And I'm still here, still choosing him, still willing to navigate the hard parts because the alternative is going back to a life where I was successful and empty. She paused. You want to know if I'm staying at TechCore? Yes. I'm staying because I love this company and I'm good at running it, but I'm not staying at the cost of my humanity. I'm not going to sacrifice the first real relationship I've ever had just to make the board more comfortable. Even if it costs you everything? It won't cost me everything. It might cost me some things, but those things aren't everything. Robert was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. You're braver than I ever was.
I'm more desperate than you ever were. There's a difference. No, you're brave. You always have been. Even as a child, you'd walk into a room and demand to be taken seriously, refuse to accept that being a woman meant accepting less, pushed harder than anyone I knew to prove you deserved your place. He reached across the table, took her hand. And I'm proud of you. Even when I'm terrified for you. Even when I think you're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm proud that you're my daughter. Tears pricked Claire's eyes. Then support me. Not just in the boardroom. Actually support me. Tell me you understand why I had to leave Lawrence. Why I had to tell the truth. Why loving Ethan isn't a weakness or a distraction, but the thing that's making me human again. I'm trying to understand, but Claire, I look at you and I see everything I've built on the edge of collapse. Every principle I taught you about leadership being tested by one relationship. Maybe those principles needed testing. Maybe leadership that requires lying about who you love isn't actually leadership worth having. She squeezed his hand. Dad, you built something amazing, and I'm grateful, but I don't want to spend 50 years protecting a legacy at the cost of actually living. I want to build something that matters while also being someone who matters. To myself, to Ethan, to Maya. And if you can't do both, then I'll choose being someone over building something. Because buildings crumble, companies fold, legacies fade. But the person you are, the choices you make about who to love and how to treat people and whether to tell the truth even when it costs you, that's what endures. They talked for another hour, circling the same questions from different angles. By the end, Robert hadn't fully accepted her choices, but he'd stopped fighting them. It was progress. When Claire returned to her penthouse that night, she felt the weight of everything that had changed. The space looked the same, minimalist furniture, designer everything, views that stretched to the horizon, but it felt different, empty in a way it hadn't before. She'd spent years building this life, this perfect, controlled, successful life. And now she could see it for what it was, a beautiful cage. Her phone rang. Ethan. Hey, how was dinner with your dad? Complicated. He's trying to understand, but it's hard for him. He sees love as a liability instead of an asset. That's sad. Yeah, it is. She looked around her apartment. I don't want to be here tonight. Then don't be. Come here. Ethan, I can't keep showing up at your apartment every time I'm lonely. That's not fair to Maya. She needs routine, stability. She needs to see that home is where you choose to be, not where you're obligated to stay. His voice was gentle. Come over. Maya would love to see you. And honestly, so would I. 20 minutes later, Claire stood at his door again. But this time it was different. This time it wasn't desperation or crisis. It was choice. Maya answered, wearing pajamas covered in stars. You came back. I did. Is that okay? It's perfect. I wanted to show you the volcano after we painted it. It dried, and it's so pretty. She grabbed Claire's hand, pulled her inside. Daddy made cookies. They're only a little burned. They're not burned, Ethan called from the kitchen. They're well done. That's what burned people say, Claire laughed. Let Maya drag her to the living room where a purple and silver volcano sat proudly on the coffee table. It was lumpy and asymmetrical and completely wonderful. It's perfect, Claire said honestly. It's weird, but Ms. Rachel says weird is just another word for interesting. Maya picked it up carefully. Want to see it erupt?
Daddy said we could do the vinegar thing tomorrow. I would love that. They spent the evening in comfortable domesticity, eating slightly overdone cookies, playing Go Fish, listening to Maya read from her chapter book with intense concentration. When Maya finally went to bed, Claire helped clean up the scattered game pieces and cookie crumbs. You don't have to do that, Ethan said. You're a guest. I don't feel like a guest. She set the cards back in their box. I feel like, I don't know, like this is where I'm supposed to be. Is it? I think it might be, which is terrifying because I don't know how to navigate this. How to be a CEO and also someone who eats burned cookies and helps with papier-mâché volcanoes. Those feel like different people. They're not different people. They're different contexts for the same person. Ethan pulled her down onto the couch beside him. You're allowed to be complex, Claire. You're allowed to be fierce in the boardroom and soft with Maya, strategic with investors and vulnerable with me. All of those things can be true at once. But how do I do both well? How do I give TechCore what it needs while also giving you and Maya what you deserve? The same way everyone does. Imperfectly, with mistakes and adjustments and constant recalibration. There's no formula for this. We just figure it out as we go. Claire rested her head on his shoulder. I'm going to mess this up sometimes, be too focused on work, miss important things, prioritize the wrong things. I know, and I'm going to be too protective of Maya sometimes. Pull back when you want to be involved. Struggle with letting you into parts of our life that still feel like Sarah's territory. He kissed her temple. We're both going to mess this up. The question isn't whether we'll fail, it's whether we'll keep choosing each other even when we do. And will you? Every time. He said it with such certainty that Claire felt something loosen in her chest. Claire, I spent 3 years watching you from a distance, thinking you were completely out of reach. Now you're here, in my apartment, helping my daughter with art projects and eating our terrible cookies. I'm not letting that go just because it's complicated. What if the board forces me out? What if I lose TechCore? Then you'll build something else. Start something new. Take all that skill and determination and apply it somewhere else. You're not defined by one company, not even one your father built. It feels like I am sometimes. That's because you've tied your identity to your position for so long, you've forgotten there's a person underneath the title. He turned her face toward his. But I see that person, the one who gets excited about purple volcanoes, who fights for kids she barely knows because it's right, who'd rather lose everything than compromise her integrity. That person is worth more than any CEO title. The kiss was slow and sweet, and promised things they were both too scared to say out loud yet. When they broke apart, Claire felt tears on her cheeks. I love you, she whispered. I don't know when it happened or how to navigate it, but I love you. I love you too. Have since about 6 months after I started at TechCore. Maybe longer. That's a long time to carry a secret. It's a long time to wait for someone to be ready, but you're worth waiting for. They fell asleep on his couch, tangled together, the city lights filtering through the windows. And for the first time in as long as Claire could remember, she didn't dream about board meetings or stock prices or the next crisis to manage. She dreamed about purple volcanoes and a little girl with wild curls and a man who saw her not as a CEO or a prize, but as someone worth choosing every single day. When morning came, Maya found them still on the couch and announced with 6-year-old authority that if Claire was going to keep sleeping over, she needed to bring pajamas because suits weren't proper sleeping clothes. She has a point, Ethan murmured, still half asleep. She usually does. And somehow, in that small apartment with its mismatched furniture and volcano projects and burned cookies, Claire Hawthorne began to understand what success actually looked like when it wasn't measured by others' metrics. It looked like choosing truth over convenience, love over strategy, being someone over building something. And it looked like finally being brave enough to stop pretending she had all the answers and simply live the questions instead. The pajamas arrived 3 days later. A practical set Claire ordered online because Maya's observation had been characteristically accurate. But when she showed up at Ethan's apartment that Friday evening with an overnight bag, Maya's reaction wasn't what she expected. The little girl stood in the doorway, elephant clutched tight, her expression uncertain in a way Claire hadn't seen before. "Are you moving in?" Maya asked quietly. Claire knelt down, meeting her at eye level. "No, sweetheart, I'm just visiting, like I have been." "But you brought a bag. That's what people do when they move in." Maya's voice was small. "Is this our house now? Or your house too?" Ethan appeared behind his daughter, his expression pained. They'd been so focused on navigating the external chaos that they hadn't properly considered what all of this looked like to a 6-year-old who'd already lost one important woman. "Maya, honey, this is still your house. You're home with Daddy. Claire's just visiting because we like spending time with her. But nothing's changing without us all talking about it first." Ethan's voice was gentle. "Is that what's worrying you? That things are changing too fast?" Maya nodded, tears starting to form. "Zoe said her dad got a new girlfriend, and then the girlfriend moved in, and then they forgot about Zoe's mom, like she wasn't even real anymore. Like the new person erased her." Claire felt her heart break. "Maya, look at me. Can you do that?" The little girl raised her eyes, tears spilling over. "Your mom was real. She'll always be real, and nobody, not me, not anyone, can erase her. She's part of you, part of your dad, part of this home, and I would never want to replace her or make you forget her." Claire took Maya's small hands. "I'm not here to be your new mom. I'm here because I care about your dad, and I care about you. But that doesn't mean your first mom stops mattering. Hearts don't work that way." "They don't?" "No, they expand. They make room for new people while keeping the old people safe inside. Your dad loves your mom. He always will. And he can also have feelings for me. Both things can be true." Maya considered this with the serious concentration only children possess. "Like how I love elephant, but I also love the stuffed bunny Grandma gave me? I don't have to choose?" "Exactly like that." "Okay," Maya wiped her eyes. "But if you're going to visit a lot, can we make rules? Like we still read Mommy's favorite book sometimes, and we still talk about her. And you don't try to change things just because they're different from how you do them?" "Those are very good rules. I agree to all of them." "And one more rule." Maya's voice gained strength. "You have to tell me the truth, even when it's hard. Because Daddy said you and him got in trouble for telling the truth, and I think that's brave. But it only works if you keep doing it. You can't just be honest once and then go back to pretending." Claire looked at this child who'd somehow become the wisest person in the room. "You're absolutely right. I promise to always tell you the truth, even when it's hard." "Okay then. You can come in." Maya stepped aside, suddenly back to her usual energetic self. "We're making pizza. You can help if you wash your hands first. Daddy's rule." That evening, making pizza with mismatched toppings and listening to Maya's elaborate story about why pineapple absolutely belonged on pizza, despite what Oliver at school said, Claire understood something fundamental. This wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was about showing up, being present, earning trust through consistency rather than demanding it through intensity. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm. Claire managed TechCore during the day, fighting battles with hostile board members, rebuilding investor confidence, proving that her personal honesty translated to professional strength. In the evenings, she'd often end up at Ethan's apartment, helping with homework or dishes or the 1,000 small tasks that made up their life. The media attention began to fade, replaced by newer scandals and fresher drama. Claire's stock price stabilized and then began climbing again as quarterly reports showed strong growth despite the turmoil. Slowly, reluctantly, investors began to accept that maybe a CEO who'd chosen integrity over convenience wasn't such a bad bet after all. But the professional vindication came with personal cost. Richard Ashford was relentless in his campaign to undermine Claire. He used his board position to question every decision, challenge every initiative, and generally make her leadership as difficult as possible. At a particularly contentious board meeting 6 weeks after the wedding incident, Richard played his final card. "I'm calling for another vote of no confidence," he announced. "Claire's leadership has been marked by scandal, instability, and decisions that prioritize personal interest over shareholder value. It's time we acknowledge that this experiment in radical transparency has failed." Claire had been expecting this, had prepared for it, but it still felt like a punch to the gut. On what grounds? Jennifer Chen asked sharply. Our last quarter exceeded projections. We've landed 3 major contracts. Stock price is up 11% from its post-scandal low. By what metric has Claire's leadership failed? By the metric of trust, of reputation, of maintaining the dignity of this institution. Richard pulled out a folder. I have here documentation of Claire's continued relationship with Ethan Brooks, including evidence that she's been spending nights at his residence, that she's become involved in his daughter's life, that she's blurring personal and professional boundaries in ways that create liability for this company. Having a relationship isn't grounds for removal, Patricia Chen interjected. She'd been one of Claire's harshest critics initially, but had softened after seeing the documented evidence of Claire's professional integrity. Unless you can prove it's affecting her judgment, I can prove it's affecting company optics. We've lost conservative investors who are uncomfortable with the arrangement. We've had partnerships questioned because potential clients are concerned about leadership stability, and we've become known not for our innovation, but for our CEO's personal life. Richard leaned forward. This board has a choice. Continue down this path and watch TechCore become a punchline, or make a change and restore dignity to our leadership. Claire had let him speak without interruption. Now she stood, her voice calm and clear. Richard's right about one thing. This board has a choice, but it's not the choice he's framing. She looked around the table, meeting each member's eyes. You can choose leadership that maintains appearances at all costs, that lies about personal realities to project false stability, that treats employees like assets rather than humans with complex lives. Or you can choose leadership that acknowledges reality, that people are messy and complicated, that honesty sometimes creates short-term discomfort, and that integrity matters more than optics. That's a false binary, Richard protested. Is it? Because it seems to me that you're arguing for exactly what I'm describing. You want a CEO who will hide any aspect of themselves that might make investors uncomfortable, who will sacrifice personal authenticity for corporate image, who will treat love like a liability rather than a fundamental human experience. Claire's voice strengthened. And I'm telling you that CEO isn't me. It never was, and pretending otherwise nearly destroyed me. So you admit you're not fit for the position. I admit I'm not fit for the position as you've defined it. But maybe that definition is wrong. Maybe we need leadership that's honest about being human, that shows employees they don't have to choose between professional success and personal authenticity. That demonstrates you can run a billion-dollar company while also having a life that matters beyond quarterly reports. Robert Hawthorne spoke for the first time. Richard, you've been pushing this narrative for weeks, but the numbers don't support it. Claire's leadership has been objectively successful. Revenue is up. Innovation is strong. Employee satisfaction scores are the highest they've been in 5 years. The only metric by which she's failing is your personal comfort with her choices. It's not just my comfort. It's about maintaining standards. Standards that prioritize appearances over results, that value image over substance. Robert's voice was firm. I built this company on the principle that good work speaks louder than pedigree, that we judge people by what they accomplish, not who they love. And Claire has accomplished more in the last 6 weeks under incredible pressure than most CEOs do in a year without any. You're biased. She's your daughter. I'm recused from voting, but I'm not recused from speaking truth. And the truth is that you're trying to remove the best CEO this company has ever had because she made choices you disagree with. That's not governance, that's vendetta. The room fell silent. Finally, Jennifer Chen spoke. I move that we table this vote indefinitely. Claire has proven her competence repeatedly. The only thing she's proven incompetent at is lying about who she is. And personally, I think that's a strength, not a weakness. I second, Patricia said quietly. This is absurd, Richard protested. You're letting personal sympathy. We're letting evidence guide our decisions, something you seem unwilling to do. Jennifer's voice was sharp. Motion carries. This matter is tabled. Richard stood abruptly. Then I'm resigning from this board. I won't be part of an organization that's become a joke. Your resignation is accepted, Robert said calmly. We'll announce it as mutual parting of ways, professional differences. Very amicable. There's nothing amicable about this. Then it's good you're leaving. Richard gathered his materials and walked out, his footsteps echoing in the silent boardroom. When the door closed behind him, Claire felt something fundamental shift. The last major threat to her position gone. Not through compromise or manipulation, but through his own inability to accept that integrity could coexist with leadership. After the meeting, Robert pulled Claire aside. You won. You know that, right? You faced down everything they threw at you and you won. I survived. That's not the same as winning. It is in business. Survival is winning. Everything else is just degrees of success. He paused. I owe you an apology. I spent weeks trying to protect you by pushing you back toward comfortable lies. But you were right. The truth was stronger. I learned it from you. Good work speaks louder than pedigree. That was always your principle. I just applied it to personal life, too. I'm proud of you. Your mother and I, we talked, really talked, for the first time in years, about choices we made, sacrifices we accepted. And we realized something. We built a successful company. But you're building a successful life. And that's harder. More important. Claire felt tears threatening. Thank you, Dad. Don't thank me yet. I'm about to make your life more complicated. He smiled slightly. I'm stepping down from the board. Fully. No more advisory role. No more shadow influence. It's time I let you actually run the company without my ghost looking over your shoulder. Dad, you don't have to. I do. Because you'll never truly be CEO while I'm still here questioning your choices. And you deserve to lead without that weight. He kissed her forehead. Besides, your mother and I are taking a trip. 6 months. Europe. Asia. Places we always said we'd visit but never made time for. Turns out there's more to life than quarterly earnings. Who are you and what have you done with my father? Your father is learning from his daughter. Better late than never. That evening, Claire went straight to Ethan's apartment. She had news and she needed to share it with the people who'd stood by her through everything. Maya answered the door, already in pajamas, her curls wilder than usual. Claire, guess what? I got to be line leader today and Oliver apologized for saying pineapple was gross on pizza because Ms. Bassesi ispul pochibetians. Rachel said everyone's opinions are valid and he was being judgmental. That's wonderful. Did you accept his apology? Yes. Because Ms. Rachel says forgiveness is important, but I also told him he's still wrong about pineapple. Maya grabbed her hand. Daddy's making stir fry. It has too many vegetables, but I'm being brave about it. In the kitchen, Ethan was indeed making stir fry, managing about 6 different pans with the organized chaos of a single parent who'd learned to multitask. Richard's gone, Claire announced without preamble. Resigned from the board. I'm actually fully CEO now without him trying to undermine me every day. Ethan set down his spatula, pulled her into a hug. That's incredible. It means things might actually calm down. The media's already moved on to other scandals. The board is stable. The company's strong. We might actually get to just live without constantly fighting fires. That sounds terrifying, he said with a smile. Why terrifying? Because now we have to figure out what normal looks like for us. No more crisis mode. No more external threats forcing us together. Just actual relationship building. Deciding how this works long term. Maya appeared beside them. Are you talking about the future? Because I have opinions. They both laughed. Of course you do, Claire said. What are your opinions? I think if you're going to keep visiting, you should have your own toothbrush here. Because sharing is nice, but germs are real. That's science. Maya spoke with complete authority. And also, I think we should make Sunday morning pancakes a tradition. Because traditions are important for families. The word hung in the air. Families. Ethan and Claire exchanged glances. Maya, is that how you see this? As family? Ethan asked carefully. Well, yeah. You love each other. Claire comes over all the time. She helps with homework and knows my favorite color and doesn't make me eat vegetables I actually hate just because vegetables are healthy. That's family stuff. Maya looked between them. Unless you don't want it to be family, because that's okay too. I just thought, no, sweetheart, I want that, Claire said quickly. I just didn't want to assume. I didn't want to push myself into places I wasn't invited. You're invited. I'm inviting you right now. Officially. Maya held out her hand to shake. Welcome to the family. The formality of it, the 6-year-old seriousness, made Claire's eyes sting with tears. She shook Maya's hand solemnly. I accept. Thank you. Good. Now can we eat? I'm being very patient about the vegetables, but I'm also very hungry. Over dinner, they talked about logistics, about how to actually blend their lives now that the worst of the storm had passed, about whether it made sense for Claire to keep her penthouse or whether they should find somewhere new, bigger space that belonged to all of them rather than one person's history. I don't want to erase what you and Sarah built here, Claire said carefully. This is Maya's home, her memories. It's also too small for 3 people long term, Ethan pointed out. And honestly, I think a fresh start might be good. Somewhere that's ours together, where Maya can have her own room and you can have office space and we're not constantly tripping over each other. Can we get a backyard? Maya asked hopefully. For science experiments? Science experiments, Ethan repeated. Volcanoes have to erupt somewhere. Ms. Rachel says the scientific method requires testing. Then we'll look for places with backyards suitable for scientific testing. Over the following months, they did exactly that. Found a house in Wallingford with enough space for all of them. 3 bedrooms, an office for Claire, a backyard for Maya's increasingly elaborate science projects. It wasn't as grand as Claire's penthouse or as modest as Ethan's apartment. It was somewhere in between, theirs. The process of merging households revealed all the complications they'd been too focused on survival to address. Claire had to learn that Ethan needed quiet time after work to decompress. Ethan had to accept that Claire sometimes worked until midnight, and that wasn't rejection, just how she processed stress. Maya had to adjust to having another adult in her space, someone who had opinions about bedtimes and homework and whether ice cream counted as dinner. They fought. Not about big things, those they handled with the same honesty that had gotten them through the scandal, but about small things. About Claire buying Maya an expensive violin without consulting Ethan first. About Ethan feeling like Claire was trying to solve problems with money instead of presents. About Maya playing them against each other when she wanted to avoid vegetables. But they also learned. Claire learned to ask instead of assume. Ethan learned to accept help without seeing it as charity. Maya learned that having 2 adults who loved her meant twice the support, but also twice the accountability. The wedding happened on a Saturday in early spring, 9 months after Claire had walked away from her first one. This time, there were no 700 guests or designer gowns or strategic alliances. Just 30 people in the backyard of their new home. Close friends, family, and Maya's entire class, because she'd insisted that if you were building a family, everyone should be invited to celebrate. Claire wore a simple dress. Ethan wore a suit that Maya had helped pick out, because Daddy needs to look fancy but not stuffy. The ceremony was brief and honest, written by them rather than pulled from templates. When it came time for vows, Claire spoke first. Ethan, 9 months ago I showed up at your door in a wedding dress, running from a life that looked perfect but felt empty. You could have turned me away, told me I was crazy, protected yourself and Maya from the chaos I was bringing. But you didn't. You let me in. You listened. You showed me what it looked like to choose honesty even when it cost everything. Her voice wavered. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone who fits into your perfect plan. It's about finding someone who makes you want to throw out the plan and build something real instead. I love you. I love Maya. I love the life we're building that's messy and complicated and absolutely nothing like what I expected. And I can't wait to spend the rest of my life being brave enough to keep choosing truth with you. Ethan's vows were simpler. Claire, you walked into my life at a moment when I'd convinced myself that feeling anything again was too risky. You were brilliant and terrifying and so far out of reach, I didn't even let myself hope. But you chose me anyway, not because I was safe or easy or made sense on paper, but because somehow, despite everything, we made sense to each other. He took her hands. I promise to keep choosing you. In boardrooms and in our kitchen. When you're the powerful CEO and when you're the woman who burns toast. When things are easy and when they're impossibly hard. You took a chance on us. I promise to spend forever proving you made the right choice. Maya, serving as flower girl and ring bearer and self-appointed ceremony director, handed them the rings with great solemnity. Then she whispered loudly, "Now you kiss. That's how weddings work." The kiss was witnessed by 30 people and one very satisfied 6-year-old. At the reception, a casual backyard gathering with food trucks and string lights, and Maya's playlist of what she called happy dancing music, Claire found herself standing with her father, watching Ethan dance with Maya. "You look happy," Robert said. "I am happy, terrifyingly happy, like I keep waiting for someone to tell me I'm doing it wrong." "You probably are doing it wrong by conventional standards, but conventional standards are overrated." He sipped his champagne. "Your mother and I were separating, officially, after the Europe trip." Claire turned to him, shocked. "Dad, don't look so worried. It's amicable. We still care for each other, but we realized we'd built a partnership, not a marriage. And at our age, we'd rather spend what time we have left actually living than maintaining appearances." He smiled. "We learned that from you, that it's never too late to choose truth over convenience." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep being brave. Keep showing people that success and authenticity can coexist. Keep proving that the next generation doesn't have to make the same compromises we did." He hugged her. "I'm proud of you, Claire. Not for what you've built, for who you've become." Later, as the sun set and the party continued, Claire found herself in the kitchen with Jennifer Chen, who'd become an unexpected friend through all the chaos. "You did it," Jennifer said, refilling her wine glass. "You actually pulled off the impossible, kept your job, got the guy, integrated a ready-made family, made it look almost easy. It wasn't easy, it was terrifying every single day. That's what made it brave. Easy doesn't require courage." Jennifer clinked her glass against Claire's. "You know what the best part is? You changed the entire culture at TechCore. People are more honest now, more willing to be human at work, because you showed them it's possible to be professional and authentic at the same time. Or I just got lucky that the board didn't fire me. No, you fought, strategically, honestly. You didn't just survive the scandal, you used it to redefine what leadership looks like. That's not luck, that's skill." Through the window, Claire could see Ethan and Maya doing some kind of elaborate dance that involved a lot of spinning and laughter. Her family. Her impossible, complicated, absolutely perfect family. She excused herself and went outside, where Maya immediately grabbed her hand and pulled her into the dance. "You have to spin 3 times and then jump. It's the rule." "Those are very specific rules." "I made them up. That's what you do when you're building something new. You make up rules that work for you." Out of the mouths of babes. Claire spun 3 times, jumped, and let herself be exactly what she was, a CEO who'd burned toast that morning. A woman who'd walked away from a billion-dollar wedding because she'd rather have truth than security. A stepmother still learning how to navigate a 6-year-old's logic. A wife to a man who made her want to be braver than she thought possible. As the party wound down and guests began leaving, the 3 of them sat on their back porch watching the stars come out. "Do you think people will always remember the scandal?" Maya asked sleepily, curled against Claire's side. "Some people might, but eventually they'll remember what came after. The company we built. The family we are. The choices we made that turned out to matter more than the mistakes." Claire stroked Maya's hair. "That's the thing about truth. It might be messy at first, but it has staying power that lies never do." "Good. Because I like our truth, even when it's complicated." Maya yawned. "Can we do pancakes tomorrow? It's Sunday. Definitely pancakes." After Maya went to bed, Claire and Ethan stayed outside, wrapped in blankets against the spring chill. "Do you ever regret it?" Ethan asked quietly. "Walking away from Lawrence? The easy path? Every day I remember what I gave up, the certainty, the approval, the version of my life that made sense to everyone else." She turned to face him. "And every day I choose this instead. Because walking away from that wedding wasn't about running from something. It was about running toward something real, toward you, toward the possibility that maybe happiness matters more than perfection. Even when happiness is messy? Especially when happiness is messy. Because perfect is easy to fake. But messy requires you to be honest, to show up as you actually are, to build something that works for the people in it rather than the people watching it." Ethan kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promise. I love you, Mrs. Hawthorne Brooks. I love you too, even though that hyphenated name is going to be a nightmare on forms. Consider it practice for all the other complicated logistics of our life. Bring it on. I'm very good at complicated logistics. Inside, the house they'd built together waited. Not perfect. Not what anyone would have predicted. But absolutely, completely theirs. Claire had spent years being the CEO everyone expected. The daughter who made her father proud. The perfect merger candidate. The woman who had it all together. And then she'd stood on a rain-soaked doorstep in a ruined wedding dress and chosen truth instead. She'd lost investors. Board support. Her reputation as someone who always made the safe choice. But she'd gained something infinitely more valuable. A life that felt like hers. A family built on honesty rather than expectation. A partnership with someone who'd seen her at her most vulnerable and loved her more, not less. The path hadn't been easy. The costs had been real. The consequences had tested everything she believed about herself. But standing in the home they'd made together, watching the stars wheel overhead while her husband and daughter slept inside, Claire Hawthorne understood something fundamental. Real success wasn't about building empires or maintaining appearances or living up to other people's definitions of achievement. Real success was having the courage to stop pretending and choose love when it mattered most. It was messy, complicated, absolutely nothing like the life she'd planned, and it was perfect.